The waves crashed violently against the shore as Princess Zarya stood at the edge of the moonlit cliffs, staring into the endless darkness of the sea. She had always loved the ocean, until tonight. Tonight, the waters were not her friend. Tonight, they would claim her life, or her hand in marriage. For generations, her family had ruled over the mighty kingdom of Zambi, basking in wealth and power. But beneath their golden throne lay a curse, centuries old and unbreakable. A vengeful spirit beneath the waves had sworn destruction upon her bloodline, and now, the time of reckoning had come. On her 21st birthday, Zarya was bound by an unholy oath to wed the cursed Merman king, Omari, the drowned sorcerer king who had once ruled both land and sea. Betrayed by his own people, cast into the ocean's depths, he had risen again, but not as a man. His rage had turned to vengeance, his name spoken only in whispers, his spirit haunting the waters that fed her kingdom. What happened next would determine the fate of Zarya's entire lineage. This cursed marriage would not only decide her destiny, it would unravel the dark secrets of her ancestors, expose a conspiracy buried in the tides, and force her to make a choice that no daughter should ever have to make. Because sometimes, the most dangerous monster isn't the one lurking in the deep, it's the one waiting in the throne room. Before we dive deeper into this epic tale, we'd love to know where you are watching from. Tell us in the comments. And if you love high-stakes fantasy filled with mermaids, magic, love, and sacrifice, don't just watch, be part of our adventure. Like this video, share it with someone who loves powerful stories, and hit that subscribe button, because tomorrow, we've got an extra special story lined up for you, and trust me, you won't want to miss it. The full moon hung low over the village of Zuma, its golden light rippling over the vast ocean. The waves whispered secrets to the shore, and the wind carried echoes of an old curse. In the heart of the village, behind high stone walls, Princess Zarya sat by her bedroom window, staring at the restless sea. Tomorrow was her 21st birthday. The day she had dreaded her entire life. She traced the golden bracelet on her wrist, a gift from her late mother. Its swirling patterns were symbols of protection, but no charm could shield her from fate. The elders had spoken. The ancestors had written it in the stars. She must marry the Merman prince. Zarya, a gentle voice called. She turned to see her nursemaid, Mama Ife, standing in the doorway. The old woman's face was carved with wisdom, her dark eyes filled with sorrow. You should rest, my child. Tomorrow will be difficult. Zarya shook her head. How can I sleep when I am to be given away to a monster? Her voice trembled. Mama Ife, is there no way to escape this? The old woman sighed, stepping closer. You know the story, my dear. Long ago, your great-grandfather, King Jabari, betrayed the sorcerer King Omari. He and his council drowned him in the sea, binding his soul to the waters with dark magic. In his rage, Omari cursed your bloodline. No firstborn daughter of this family shall know freedom. And so, you must go to him. Zarya clenched her fists. But what if I refuse? Mama Ife placed a wrinkled hand on her cheek. Then the curse will not end. The storms will come. The sea will claim the land. Your people will suffer. A heavy silence fell between them. Zarya turned back to the ocean. Somewhere beneath those waters, Omari waited for her. Was he truly a monster? Or was he something else? She would find out soon enough. The sun rose slowly over Zuma, painting the sky in fiery oranges and golds. The village was unusually quiet, as if the people themselves were holding their breath. Today was the day Princess Zarya would be sent to the ocean, to fulfill the blood oath that bound her to the cursed Merman prince. She stood before the grand palace gates, dressed in flowing white robes, her dark curls adorned with seashells and gold beads. Around her, elders chanted ancient words, their voices deep and steady. They carried staffs carved with the symbols of water and fate. Her father, King Abadil, stood at the front of the crowd, his face carved from stone. He had ruled Zuma with strength, But even he could not fight the will of the ancestors. He had tried everything, offering sacrifices, making bargains with the sea priests, but nothing had changed the prophecy. "You do this not only for yourself, Zarya, but for all of Zuma," he said, his deep voice heavy with sorrow. Zarya swallowed hard. "And what if Omari is not the monster we believe him to be?" Her father's jaw tightened. "Then may the ancestors have mercy on you." With those words, the procession began. Drummers led the way, their beats slow and haunting. Women threw flower petals in Zarya's path, while warriors walked behind her, their spears glinting in the sunlight. Though the people watched in silence, their eyes spoke of grief and fear. She was being sent to the sea, not as a bride, but as an offering. The path wound through the village, past towering baobab trees and fields of golden millet, until they reached the shoreline. The waves crashed against the rocks, as if they too were impatient. A small wooden boat awaited her. It was decorated with blue and silver cloth, its sides etched with the symbols of the water spirits. Mama Aoife took Zarya's hands, pressing them gently. "You are stronger than you know, child," she whispered. Zarya nodded, fighting back tears. Then, with a deep breath, she stepped into the boat. The elders pushed it into the waves, and the ocean carried her away. As the shore faded behind her, she gripped the sides of the boat, staring at the water. It was too late to turn back now. The sea had claimed her. Somewhere beneath the waves, Omari was waiting. The boat drifted deeper into the vast, endless ocean. The air was thick with the scent of salt, and the waves whispered against the wood like unseen voices. Zarya's heart pounded as she gripped the edges, her fingers digging into the polished surface. The sky above was clear, but the water below was dark and restless. It was as if something ancient lurked beneath, watching her, waiting. Then, the waves changed. The ocean, once calm, began to swirl, churning as if stirred by an unseen hand. The boat rocked violently, sending sprays of seawater into the air. Zarya gasped, holding on tightly as a strong current pulled the boat forward with unnatural force. Something was coming. A shadow moved beneath the water, circling the boat. It was large, larger than anything Zarya had ever seen. A strange humming sound filled the air, deep and vibrating through her bones. Then, a hand broke the surface of the water. It was not human. The skin shimmered with an eerie blue glow, webbed fingers curling over the edge of the boat. Another hand followed, then a head emerged from the depths. He was beautiful. And terrifying. His deep brown skin glistened with moisture, his long, braided hair flowing like ink in the water. His eyes, golden like molten fire, locked onto hers. His chest was broad, adorned with markings that pulsed with faint blue light. But below his waist, there were no legs, only a long, powerful tail, covered in dark silver scales that shimmered like moonlight on the water. Omari. The cursed Merman prince. Zarya's breath hitched as he pulled himself up, hovering just above the boat. His gaze was unreadable, filled with something ancient and powerful. "You are late," he said, his voice smooth yet laced with something dangerous. Zarya swallowed hard, forcing herself to meet his gaze. "I did not come here by choice." Omari smirked, tilting his head. "And yet, you came." The boat rocked again, and suddenly, the water rose. A massive wave lifted them both high into the air before crashing down, swallowing them whole. Darkness engulfed Zarya as the ocean pulled her under. The last thing she saw was Omari's golden eyes, watching her sink. The ocean swallowed Zarya whole. Cold water rushed into her ears, muffling all sound except for the deafening thrum of her own heartbeat. Her arms flailed as she sank, her white robes billowing around her like ghostly tendrils. Panic surged through her chest. She had been pulled under too fast, too deep. The surface was already far above, a blurry shimmer of light. Then, something wrapped around her wrist. A firm grip, strong, unyielding. Omari. His golden eyes glowed in the dark waters, his hair floating weightlessly around him. His tail flicked once, cutting through the currents with effortless grace. Zarya gasped, but instead of choking, she found that she could breathe. The water filled her lungs like air, tingling with a strange, electric energy. She stared in shock. "Do not fight it," Omari's voice echoed in her mind, though his lips did not move. "The ocean welcomes you now." Zarya struggled against his hold. "Where are you taking me?" His grip tightened. "To my kingdom." Before she could protest, he pulled her deeper, his powerful tail propelling them into the abyss. The world around them shifted from deep blue to pitch black, then to an eerie glow as they passed through a shimmering barrier. And suddenly, they were no longer in darkness. Zarya gasped as a city emerged before her. Glowing coral towers twisted like vines, their surfaces shimmering with bioluminescent blues and purples. Strange sea creatures slithered between the buildings, their bodies illuminating the dark waters with soft golden light. Schools of fish swam past like flocks of birds, weaving between giant shells and spiraling rock formations. And at the heart of it all stood a massive palace, carved from black stone, its entrance guarded by two towering statues of serpent-like beings. "This," Zarya whispered, eyes wide. "This is your home." Omari released her wrist, floating beside her. His expression was unreadable. "It was once my kingdom. Now, it is my prison." Zarya turned to him, confusion knitting her brows. "Prison?" Omari's golden eyes darkened. "Come," he said, swimming toward the palace. "You will understand soon enough." Zarya hesitated, her heart pounding. She had been sent here to break a curse, to atone for the sins of her ancestors. But as she followed Omari into the heart of the underwater kingdom, she realized something unsettling. She was not just here as a bride. She was here as a pawn in a game far more dangerous than she had ever imagined. The underwater palace loomed before Zarya like a sleeping beast. Dark and ancient, its walls were covered in strange carvings, symbols that pulsed with dim blue light, shifting as if alive. The entrance was massive, guarded by towering serpent statues with glowing eyes. They seemed to watch her, their mouths slightly open, revealing sharp stone fangs. Omari swam ahead, his powerful tail cutting through the water effortlessly. Zarya hesitated before following, her heart pounding. As they passed through the great archway, the water inside the palace felt different. Heavier. It pressed against her skin, humming with energy. The grand hall stretched endlessly, its ceiling lost in darkness. Rows of glowing orbs floated in midwater, casting ghostly blue light over the space. Carved pillars lined the walls, each depicting scenes of warriors, battles, and powerful sea creatures. But what caught Zarya's attention were the figures standing in the shadows. Dozens of them. Merfolk. Their eyes glowed like Omari's, but their faces held suspicion, anger, and fear. They wore armor of shell and bone, their bodies scarred from old battles. Some had long, flowing hair, while others had crowns of coral and pearls. One of them, a tall woman with dark blue scales and piercing silver eyes, stepped forward. She studied Zarya before turning to Omari. "You have brought her," she said coldly. "The land princess." Omari's jaw tightened. "The curse demands it." The woman's eyes flickered with something unreadable. "And does she know what is required?" Omari hesitated. Zarya's stomach twisted. She had been told that marrying Omari would break the curse, but something about the woman's tone sent a chill through her. "What is she talking about?" Zarya asked, her voice firm. "What do you mean, what is required?" The woman turned her sharp gaze on her. "Did your people not tell you? Did they not say that to truly break the curse, you must do more than marry the cursed prince?" Zarya's breath caught in her throat. "What are you talking about?" she whispered. Omari looked away, his golden eyes darkening. And then the woman said the words that shattered everything Zarya thought she knew. "To break the curse, you must kill your father." Zarya felt the weight of the ocean press against her chest. The words echoed in her mind, louder than the whispering currents. To break the curse, you must kill your father. Her hands trembled as she stared at the silver-eyed merwoman. That's a lie, she said, shaking her head. I was told that marrying Omari would end the curse. The merwoman scoffed. That is what your people wanted you to believe. But the curse is bound by blood, and blood must be spilled to unbind it. Zarya turned to Omari, searching his face for the truth. He would not meet her gaze. So it's true, she whispered. Omari sighed, running a hand through his dark, floating braids. Yes. Zarya took a step back, her hands clenching into fists. And you weren't going to tell me? He finally looked at her, his golden eyes burning. Would it have changed anything? Would you have still come? Anger flared inside her. You don't get to decide that for me. Omari swam closer, his voice lower. You think this is easy for me? I have waited centuries for justice, for my soul to be freed from this prison. I did not ask for your father's betrayal, just as you did not ask for mine. Zarya's breath hitched. My father's betrayal. The men who had raised her, who had taught her the history of their people, who had sat beside her mother's grave and promised to protect her. Was he truly guilty? She thought of the way he avoided talking about the curse, the way he had sent her off without a single tear. Did he know the truth all along? She wrapped her arms around herself. There has to be another way. Omari's expression softened. For a moment, he looked less like a cursed prince and more like a man who had been waiting too long for an impossible hope. If there was another way, he said, I would have found it. Zarya turned away, trying to steady her breathing. The merfolk were still watching, their eyes sharp and waiting. They had spent centuries trapped under the rule of dark magic, their prince bound to the ocean. They wanted her to make a choice. She was the only one who could. I need time, she finally said. Omari nodded. Then you shall have it. But deep inside, she knew. Time would not change the truth. Either she would have to betray her father, or she would have to betray Omari. Zarya lay awake in the chamber Omari had given her, staring at the dark, shifting water above. The room was unlike anything she had ever seen, a dome of glowing blue coral with a bed woven from sea silk and lined with soft pearls. Strange fish darted through gaps in the walls, their bodies pulsing with light. But none of it brought her comfort. Her mind was a storm, tossing her thoughts like a boat caught in the waves. Kill your father. She squeezed her eyes shut. The idea was unthinkable. No matter the sins of her ancestors, could she truly take her father's life? A soft ripple moved through the water. Zarya tensed, sitting up. Who's there? No answer. Then, a voice, soft as the current, yet sharp as a blade. You hesitate, princess. Zarya turned sharply. A shadow drifted in the water, just beyond the coral walls. It moved with an unnatural grace, as if the ocean bent to its will. Then, it stepped forward. A woman, no, not a woman. Her skin was dark as the deep, her eyes two glowing orbs of silver. Her long, floating hair writhed like living tendrils, and her fingers were long and webbed, tipped with black claws. Zarya's throat went dry. Who are you? The creature smiled, revealing sharp, pearly teeth. A friend. One who knows the truth. Zarya pushed off the bed, backing away. Truth. The woman tilted her head. The choice you face is not as it seems. Omari and his people have only told you part of the tale. Zarya hesitated. What do you mean? The woman swam closer, her voice a whisper. Your father did not just betray Omari. He made a bargain. A terrible one. Zarya's breath caught. What kind of bargain? The woman's silver eyes gleamed. One that ensured his throne, at the cost of Omari's soul. Zarya shook her head. No. That's not possible. Oh, but it is, the woman crooned. Why do you think the curse was never broken? Why do you think your father sent you here without protest? Zarya's hands clenched into fists. She had believed this was about atonement, about justice for the sins of her ancestors. But what if it was more than that? What if her father was still hiding something? The woman leaned closer, her voice like the pull of the tide. If you truly seek the truth, go to the Hall of Echoes. Zarya's pulse quickened. The Hall of Echoes. A slow smile spread across the woman's face. A place where the sea remembers all things. Where secrets are never buried. Zarya swallowed hard. If there was even a chance that she had been lied to, she needed to know. She needed to find the truth. Even if it changed everything. The words of the shadowy woman haunted Zarya long after she disappeared. The Hall of Echoes. The name alone sent a chill through her, though she didn't know why. Something about it felt forbidden. But if it held the truth about her father, about Omari's curse, then she had to go. She waited until the palace had fallen silent. Then, with careful movements, she swam through the corridors, her white robes flowing like ghostly tendrils in the water. The merfolk slept in chambers woven from seaweed and pearl, their soft breaths lost in the hum of the ocean. Guards patrolled the outer halls, their armor gleaming under the bioluminescent lights. Zarya moved like a shadow, slipping past them unseen. Omari had told her she would have time. But she knew he would not approve of this. She had to do it alone. The deeper she swam, the darker the palace became. The light of the coral towers faded, replaced by eerie, shifting shadows. Strange creatures slithered through cracks in the walls, their eyes glowing in the darkness. The water grew colder, pressing against her skin like unseen hands. Then, she saw it. A massive gate, carved from black stone, half buried in the seafloor. Its surface was covered in strange, twisting symbols, marks of old magic. A deep, humming sound filled the water, vibrating through her bones. The Hall of Echoes. Zarya reached out, pressing her palm against the cold stone. The moment she touched it, the world shifted. A powerful current swirled around her, pulling her forward. The gate trembled, then slowly creaked open, revealing an endless cavern beyond. And inside, whispers. Countless voices, murmuring in a language she did not understand. The sound was everywhere, weaving through the water like threads of silk. Shadows moved along the walls, shifting and curling, taking shape before dissolving into nothing. Zarya's heart pounded. This place was alive. She swam forward cautiously, her breath coming in shallow bursts. The whispers grew louder, the shadows thickening. Then, suddenly, a vision. The water around her flickered like fire, and before her eyes, the past unfolded. She saw a man, tall and powerful, his dark skin gleaming under torchlight. He wore a golden crown, his robes embroidered with symbols of kingship. His face was young, but his eyes, they were filled with fear. Her father. Zarya's breath caught in her throat. Then, another figure appeared. Omari. But not as she knew him now. This Omari was human. A king. His braided hair was adorned with gold, his chest bare except for the markings of a sorcerer king. He stood before her father, his expression both commanding and weary. The whispers formed words. You promised me peace, Omari's voice echoed through the chamber. You swore we would rule as brothers. Zarya's father clenched his fists. The people fear you. They say your magic is unnatural. Omari's jaw tightened. They fear what they do not understand. A pause. Then, Zarya's father spoke, his voice low. The council has decided. You cannot sit on the throne. Omari's golden eyes darkened. You would betray me. The scene shifted. Zarya saw torches, a raging storm, the angry shouts of men. She saw Omari dragged to the edge of the sea, his hands bound, his crown knocked from his head. And then, her father, standing over him, a blade in his hands. A sacrifice. Zarya's stomach twisted. Her father hadn't just betrayed Omari. He had drowned him. Bound his soul to the sea. The whispers swelled, growing deafening. The vision blurred, dissolving into darkness. Zarya gasped, stumbling back as the cavern twisted around her. Then, silence. She was alone once more. Her hands shook. Everything she had been told was a lie. Omari had been a king, a ruler betrayed by his own court. Her father had not been an innocent bystander, he had been the one to seal Omari's fate. And now, the curse demanded justice. Zarya turned, her heart pounding. She could not return to Omari. Not yet. She had to confront her father. And she had to do it before it was too late. Zarya swam through the dark corridors of the palace, her mind racing. Everything she had ever known had crumbled before her eyes. Her father, her protector, her guide, was a liar. A murderer. And Omari. He had once been a man, a king, betrayed by those he trusted most. The weight of the truth pressed against her chest. She had come here believing she was making a sacrifice for peace, that marrying Omari would right the wrongs of her ancestors. But the curse demanded more than a wedding. It demanded justice. Her father's life. Zarya's hands clenched into fists. Could she do it? Could she truly bring herself to kill him? She thought of the men who had tucked her into bed at night, who had held her hand when she was afraid. The men who had told her stories of their ancestors, who had taught her to be strong. But she also thought of Omari, dragged to the sea in chains, left to die in the depths. She thought of his people, trapped under a curse they had never asked for. She thought of herself, a pawn in a game of old blood and vengeance. No. She would not be a pawn. She would be the one to decide. Her decision was clear. She had to return to the surface. She had to confront her father. She hurried through the winding halls, careful to avoid the patrolling guards. The palace was silent, the water heavy with the weight of old magic. She could feel it pressing against her skin, whispering warnings she could not understand. As she turned a corner, a voice called out. "You shouldn't be here." Zarya froze. Omari stood in the shadows, his golden eyes glowing softly in the dim light. He was watching her, his arms crossed over his chest. His long, dark braids drifted with the current, his expression unreadable. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then, Omari sighed. "I know where you've been." Zarya swallowed hard. "Then you know I had to go." Omari stepped forward, the water swirling around him. "And now that you know the truth, what will you do?" Zarya lifted her chin. "I have to go back." A flicker of something crossed Omari's face. Disappointment. Understanding. Pain. "You mean to kill him?" Zarya hesitated. I don't know." Omari studied her for a long time. "You hesitate." Zarya's chest ached. "He is my father." Omari's expression darkened. "And he was my brother." The words stung. Zarya clenched her fists. I need to see him. I need to hear the truth from his own lips." Omari exhaled slowly, his gaze never leaving hers. "And if he admits it? If he confesses to his crime?" Zarya hesitated. She didn't know. Would she have the strength to do what needed to be done? Omari swam closer, stopping just a breath away from her. "I won't stop you," he said. "But know this, if you return to the surface, you may not like what you find." Zarya's heart pounded. "I have to do this." Omari studied her for a long moment. Then, finally, he nodded. Then I will take you to the shore. Zarya let out a shaky breath. The moment had come. One way or another, the curse would end. And Zarya would decide how. Zarya followed Omari through the twisting currents of the deep, her heart pounding with every stroke. The water around them grew lighter, shifting from deep blue to shimmering turquoise as they ascended. Schools of fish darted past, scattering like frightened whispers. The closer they got to the surface, the heavier the weight in Zarya's chest became. She was returning home. But it would not be the same. She had left her father as a loyal daughter, believing she was fulfilling her destiny. Now, she returned as something else. Something uncertain. Omari swam silently beside her, his powerful tail propelling him forward with ease. His golden eyes were unreadable, but Zarya knew this moment meant as much to him as it did to her. For centuries, the surface had been his prison. His hatred. His longing. Now, it was the place where his fate would be decided. They reached the shallows, where the water was warm and filled with the scent of salt and earth. Zarya's body felt lighter, the familiar pull of land calling to her. She looked up, seeing the golden glow of the setting sun through the waves. Omari hesitated just below the surface. "This is as far as I go," he said, his voice calm but firm. Zarya turned to him. "You won't come with me?" Omari shook his head. "The land is not mine to walk." His eyes darkened. "Not yet." Zarya knew what he meant. The curse still bound him. Until the blood price was paid, he would remain a prisoner of the sea. She nodded, understanding. Omari reached out, his fingers brushing against hers. His touch was cool, like the tide at dawn. "Be careful, Zarya." Her throat tightened. "I will." With one final look, she turned and swam up. The moment she broke through the surface, the air hit her like a forgotten dream. She gasped, inhaling deeply, feeling the warmth of the sun on her skin. Water dripped from her hair and robes as she waded toward the shore, her legs shaky from weeks beneath the waves. The beach was empty, the wind whispering through the palm trees. In the distance, beyond the rocky cliffs, she could see the towering walls of her father's kingdom. Home. But for how much longer? Zarya stepped onto the sand, the grains rough beneath her feet. She turned back, looking toward the ocean one last time. Omari was gone. She swallowed hard. There was no turning back now. Taking a deep breath, she straightened her shoulders and began the long walk toward the palace. She was going to face her father. And this time, she would demand the truth. Zarya's footsteps were slow but steady as she made her way through the dense jungle leading to the palace. The trees whispered around her, their leaves rustling like voices carried by the wind. Each step felt heavier than the last, her sandals sinking into the damp earth. The kingdom had not changed in her absence, but she had. She was no longer the obedient daughter who left to fulfill an oath. She was no longer the princess who blindly trusted her father's words. She was a seeker of truth. A judge of fate. The towering gates of the palace loomed ahead, their iron bars casting long shadows across the stone path. 2 guards stood at their posts, their spears gleaming under the setting sun. At first, they didn't recognize her, but when she stepped closer, their eyes widened in shock. "Princess Zarya." One of them gasped. "The king said you would never return," the other blurted out. Zarya's eyes narrowed. Never return. Her father had sent her to the sea knowing she would not come back. A cold realization gripped her. Had he always planned to sacrifice her to keep his secrets buried? "I need to see the king," she said firmly, masking the storm raging inside her. The guards hesitated, glancing at each other uneasily. Then, one of them stepped aside. "He is in the Great Hall." "But, Princess, something is not right in the palace." Zarya didn't wait for him to explain. She stepped through the gates, her heart hammering against her ribs. The palace felt different. The air was thick with unease, the torches burning low as if afraid to shine too brightly. Servants hurried through the halls, their eyes darting nervously toward the throne room. Something was wrong. Zarya's fists clenched as she pushed open the heavy doors of the great hall. And there, seated on his golden throne, was her father, King Osei. His once proud face was drawn with worry, deep lines etched across his forehead. His dark robes were wrinkled, his golden crown slightly askew. He looked like a man haunted by ghosts. The moment his gaze met Zarya's, he paled. "My daughter." His voice was barely a whisper. Zarya stepped forward, her voice cold as the ocean's depths. "Did you not expect to see me again, father?" Silence. A flicker of something passed through the king's eyes, shock, fear, guilt. He gripped the armrests of his throne. "You should not have returned." The words hit Zarya like a slap. "Not welcome home. Not my daughter, I missed you. Just you should not have returned." The last shred of hope inside her shattered. She had been nothing but a sacrifice to him. Zarya's nails dug into her palms. "I know the truth." The color drained from King Osei's face. "What are you talking about?" "I went to the Hall of Echoes," she said. "I saw everything." A hush fell over the great hall. The guards at the door stiffened. The servants exchanged fearful glances. King Osei's breath hitched. "You lie." Zarya stepped closer, her voice rising with fury. "You betrayed Omari. You promised him peace, then cast him into the sea like a criminal. You cursed his soul to centuries of suffering." The king shot to his feet, his robes billowing around him. "You do not understand." "Then make me understand," Zarya challenged, her heart pounding. For a long moment, the king was silent. Then, his shoulders sagged. There was no other way. His voice was hollow. Zarya's blood turned cold. No other way. King Osei's jaw tightened. Omari was powerful, too powerful. His magic was stronger than any ruler before him. The council feared he would grow unstoppable. They demanded his downfall. Zarya shook her head. "You could have defended him. He was your brother." Her father's hands clenched at his sides. "I tried." Zarya's breath caught. But King Osei's next words made her blood run ice cold. "I made a bargain. To spare the kingdom, I promised the sea a greater sacrifice than Omari's life." Zarya's stomach twisted. "What did you do?" The king's eyes darkened with something that looked like grief. Or regret. "I swore that one day, my own blood would atone for his suffering." Zarya's entire body went rigid. Her father's voice was barely a whisper. "You, Zarya." The room spun. She was never meant to come back. Her father had always known that marrying Omari would not be enough. He had sent her to die so that the ocean would finally be satisfied. Zarya staggered back, the weight of betrayal crushing her. Her father's gaze bore into her, filled with something strange, love, sorrow, fear. But none of it mattered anymore. Because now she knew the truth. And there was only one way this would end. Zarya's breath came in ragged gasps, her mind spinning with the weight of her father's confession. "I swore that one day, my own blood would atone for his suffering." The words echoed in her skull, louder than the roaring sea. Her father had offered her life as a bargain. A sacrifice to keep his hands clean. The great hall seemed to shrink around her. The torches flickered, the shadows lengthening like grasping fingers. The guards at the door stood frozen, eyes darting between their king and his daughter, unsure of what would happen next. Zarya swallowed the bile rising in her throat. "You sent me to my death." King Osei did not deny it. His gaze held no malice, but neither did it hold remorse. You do not understand, Zarya. His voice was quiet, steady, unshaken. The kingdom, our people, would have perished if I did not make that choice. Zarya let out a bitter laugh. And what of me? She snapped. Am I not part of your kingdom? Your people? Your daughter? A flicker of pain crossed his face, but it was gone just as quickly. I did what had to be done. Something inside Zarya cracked. She had spent her life looking up to this man, believing in him, trusting him. Now, that trust was nothing more than dust in the wind. She had once thought Omari was the monster in this story. But the real monster had been sitting on the throne all along. Her hands trembled at her sides, fingers curling into fists. Then what now? She demanded, voice sharp as a blade. Now that I stand before you, alive, knowing the truth. Her father's eyes darkened. The curse has not been broken. The words sent a chill through her bones. King Osei took a slow step forward, lowering his voice so only she could hear. Omari cannot be freed, Zarya. His return would bring ruin upon us all. Zarya stiffened. You have a choice, my daughter, he continued. Leave this behind. Return to the palace, and I will make sure you never have to fear the sea again. I will find another way. Zarya's heart pounded. Another way. Another sacrifice. Her father's solutions always required blood. And she knew, deep in her bones, that if she walked away, someone else, someone innocent, would suffer in her place. No. She would not let this cycle continue. I have a different choice, she whispered, her voice steady, cold. You know what I must do. The king's face darkened. His silence was an answer. Zarya felt something inside her settle, something she had been fighting against since the moment she learned the truth. There was only one way to break the curse. She had to kill him. Her own father. Her hands trembled, her heart warring between duty and love. Could she do it? Could she truly strike down the men who had raised her, the men whose voice had once soothed her nightmares? But then she thought of Omari. Of his suffering. Of his people, cursed to darkness. Of the truth buried under centuries of lies. No more. Zarya exhaled slowly and took a step forward. King Osei's expression did not change. He did not beg for his life. Perhaps, in some way, he had known this day would come. Zarya reached for the dagger at her belt. She was out of time. It was now or never. The great hall was silent. Not the silence of peace, but the silence before a storm. Zarya's fingers tightened around the hilt of her dagger, her pulse pounding in her ears. The weight of the blade was nothing compared to the weight of the choice before her. Her father stood unmoving, his deep-set eyes locked onto hers. He did not beg. He did not plead. He only watched. King Osei had always been a man of control, a ruler who commanded with unshaken confidence. But now, as he faced his daughter's blade, there was something in his expression she had never seen before. Acceptance. He knows. The thought struck her like lightning. He knew she would not back down. He knew she would not turn away. She had been raised to obey, to honor her bloodline. But the moment she learned the truth, she had stopped being his daughter. Now, she was his executioner. The dagger trembled in her grasp. Her father sighed, his voice low. If you do this, Zarya, you can never undo it. Zarya's jaw tightened. I never asked for this, she whispered. You gave me no choice. The king nodded, as if he had expected that answer. Then finish it. Her breath caught. Was it truly that simple? Was he just allowing her to end him? No. Nothing was ever simple. Zarya took a slow step forward, the blade glinting under the dim torchlight. She could feel every pair of eyes on her, the guards, the servants, the spirits of the ancestors watching from the unseen veil between worlds. She could feel Omari's presence lingering in the depths of her mind, waiting. This is the moment that will set him free. A shiver ran down her spine. And yet, something was wrong. A whisper of doubt slithered through her thoughts, cold and unwelcome. What if this is what he wants? Not Omari. Her father. What if this was his final act of control? What if killing him did not truly break the curse, but instead bound Zarya in a way she could not yet understand? She hesitated. The dagger trembled in her grip, and in that single moment of hesitation, the great doors to the hall burst open. Stop. A voice rang out, a voice filled with urgency, with fear. Zarya whirled around. Standing at the entrance, his broad chest rising and falling with labored breaths, was Kwame. Her childhood friend. Her father's most trusted warrior. His dark eyes locked onto hers, filled with something she had never seen before. Desperation. Behind him, more guards flooded into the hall, their spears raised, their faces etched with uncertainty. Zarya's heart clenched. Had her father planned this? Had he known she would hesitate? Was this a trap? Kwame took a slow step forward, his hands raised. Zarya, listen to me, he said. You don't have to do this. Her grip on the dagger tightened. I do. Kwame shook his head. You think this will free Omari, but what if it won't? Zarya froze. He continued, his voice low, urgent. What if killing the king only strengthens the curse? Her stomach twisted. Was it possible? Had she misunderstood the Hall of Echoes? Had she been wrong? Behind her, her father remained still. Silent. Waiting. She had come this far, ready to strike down the men who had betrayed Omari. But now, for the first time, doubt crept into her bones like a shadow she could not shake. Was this truly the only way? Or was she walking into a trap far darker than she had imagined? The room was charged with unspoken tension. Zarya's heartbeat thundered in her ears as she stood frozen between two fates, the dagger in her hand still pointed at her father's heart, yet Kwame's words had cast a shadow of doubt over her resolve. What if killing the king only strengthens the curse? It was the one question she had not asked herself. She had been so focused on vengeance, on breaking the chains that bound Omari, that she had not stopped to wonder, what if her father's death was not the answer? Kwame's dark eyes locked onto hers, pleading. Zarya, think. The curse was cast in blood, but has it ever been said that blood alone will break it? Her fingers trembled against the dagger's hilt. Had it? The Hall of Echoes had shown her the past, the betrayal, the injustice. But the voices had not told her outright that this was the only way. Had she made that decision on her own? Had her hatred and pain blinded her to something else? Behind her, her father remained still, his breathing slow and measured. Waiting. Her stomach twisted. Why wasn't he fighting? Why wasn't he trying to stop her? Slowly, she turned back to him. You knew, she whispered. King Osei's lips pressed together. I have always known, my daughter. Her fingers clenched tighter. Then tell me the truth. A shadow passed over his expression, something too deep to name. Would you believe me if I did? Zarya's chest tightened. Everything she had known about this man had shattered. How could she trust anything he said now? And yet, the doubt was there, planted like a seed in her heart. What if she was about to make the wrong choice? She lowered the dagger, just slightly. Then prove it. King Osei inhaled deeply. You wish to know the full truth. I deserve to know everything, Zarya said. Her father's eyes darkened. Then follow me. The guards tensed, waiting for Zarya's reaction. She cast a glance at Kwame. His face was still etched with worry, but he gave a small nod. She exhaled and stepped back. Lead the way." Moments later, deep beneath the palace, the torches burned low in the underground chamber, their flickering light casting eerie shadows against the stone walls. The air was damp, thick with the scent of old magic. Zarya had never been here before. Her father walked ahead, his steps slow but steady. "This place," he said quietly, "was built before my time. Before my father's time. It is the last remnant of an era long forgotten." Zarya's fingers hovered near her dagger. "What is this place?" King Osei stopped before an ancient stone altar. "This," he said, "is where Omari's fate was sealed." Zarya's breath caught. The altar was cracked, its surface stained with something dark, something old. Runes covered the walls, their symbols glowing faintly with residual power. And in the center, embedded in the stone, was a single black pearl. It pulsed like a beating heart. Zarya took a cautious step forward. "What is that?" Her father's voice was grave. "The heart of the curse." The air in the room felt heavier. Zarya swallowed hard. "You said the curse could only be broken if I killed you." King Osei turned to face her fully. His expression was unreadable. That is what the world was led to believe. Zarya's blood ran cold. "What do you mean?" Her father exhaled, his eyes heavy with something she had never seen before, guilt. "The truth is, Zarya, Omari's fate was not only tied to me. It was tied to something greater. To the will of the sea itself." Her breath hitched. "The sea," she whispered. King Osei nodded. "The ritual that bound him was not done by my hand alone. It was sealed by the spirits of the ocean, those who feared his power." Zarya's heart pounded. She had thought her father had been the mastermind behind Omari's suffering. But what if he had only been a pawn? "What does this mean?" she demanded. Her father's gaze was solemn. "It means that if you wish to free Omari, my death alone will not be enough." The room felt colder. Zarya's fingers curled into fists. All this time, she had thought she had found the answer. That by ending her father's life, she could right the wrongs of the past. But the truth was more complicated than that. Omari's chains were older, deeper, tied to forces beyond the reach of men. Zarya exhaled slowly. "So then tell me," she said, voice steady. "What must I do?" Zarya's pulse thundered in her ears. She had been so certain. Certain that killing her father was the key to breaking the curse. Certain that Omari's suffering had been crafted by a single man's betrayal. But now, as she stood before the ancient altar, the truth was unfolding into something far more terrifying. The sea itself had bound Omari. Her father had only played a part. Zarya clenched her fists. "Tell me everything." King Osei's gaze did not waver. The day Omari was betrayed, it was not just his enemies on land who wished to see him fall. The spirits of the ocean feared his power. They knew that if he ever ruled both land and sea, no force could stand against him. Zarya frowned. But Omari was a just king, wasn't he? Why would the spirits fear him? Her father's expression darkened. Because he was too powerful. Zarya swallowed hard. "The legends say Omari was gifted," King Osei continued. "He was not just a ruler, he was a sorcerer king. He wielded the magic of both land and sea, something no mortal had ever done before." Zarya's breath hitched. She had heard whispers of this, but no story had ever spoken of Omari as more than a cursed prince. If what her father was saying was true, then Omari had once been something far greater. Something the spirits had feared enough to destroy. Zarya turned to the black pearl embedded in the altar. It pulsed, slow and steady, as though it were alive. "And this?" she asked. King Osei's voice was grave. "That pearl contains the last piece of Omari's soul." Zarya's stomach twisted. "What?" The ritual that bound him was not meant to just imprison his body, her father explained. It was meant to shatter him. To strip him of his magic, his power, his very self. Zarya's breath came faster. Then, if I take the pearl, the curse will weaken, her father confirmed. But it will not break. Zarya's hands trembled. So what will? King Osei hesitated. Then, at last, he spoke. You must return the pearl to him. In the deepest part of the ocean, where his spirit was broken. Zarya's heart pounded. Return the pearl. To Omari. She could already hear the whispers of the sea, calling to her. But her father wasn't finished. There is one more thing. His voice was quiet. If you return the pearl, Omari will be whole again. But the spirits who bound him will not allow it. They will try to stop you. Zarya exhaled sharply. Of course, it would not be that easy. But she had come too far to turn back now. Her fingers brushed against the dagger at her hip. For so long, she had believed it would be her weapon of justice. But now, she understood, her fight was not against her father. It was against the sea itself. She turned to him, her eyes steady. Then I will face them. A shadow passed over King Osei's face. Do not underestimate them, Zarya. They are ancient. They are powerful. And they do not forgive. Zarya straightened her spine. Neither do I. Her father's expression flickered, perhaps with pride, perhaps with sorrow. Then, he took a slow step back. You know what must be done. Zarya nodded. With steady hands, she reached for the pearl. The moment her fingers closed around it, the air in the chamber shuddered. The torches flickered. The walls trembled. A deep, guttural roar echoed through the stone, rippling through Zarya's bones. The spirits had awakened. And they knew what she had done. The moment Zarya's fingers closed around the pearl, the air in the chamber thickened. The flickering torchlight turned an eerie shade of blue, and a chilling wind howled through the underground space, though there were no windows nor doors for such a draft to enter. Then, the voices began. Low, whispering, hissing. She dares. She takes what is not hers. The sea will not allow it. Zarya's grip tightened around the pearl, its surface pulsing like a living heart. Cold seeped into her bones, wrapping around her like unseen fingers. Her father took a cautious step back. Zarya. Before he could finish, the chamber shook. The stone walls cracked, water seeping through the fractures like veins of an open wound. The torches snuffed out all at once, plunging them into darkness. And then, they came. From the shadows, from the cracks in the walls, they slithered forth. Figures made of swirling mist and sea foam, their eyes glowing like bioluminescent creatures from the deep. Some had long, twisting limbs, like kelp caught in a current. Others had hollow faces, their mouths opening impossibly wide as if to swallow the air itself. The spirits of the sea. They had come to reclaim what was stolen. Zarya's breath hitched, but she stood her ground. I'm not afraid of you. Laughter, cold and cruel, echoed through the chamber. Brave little princess. You think yourself strong. The tallest of the spirits slithered forward, its body shifting between liquid and solid with each step. Its voice was deep, ancient, layered with voices that did not belong to a single being. Return the pearl, and we will let you live. Zarya's fingers curled around the dark stone. The weight of it felt heavier now, not just in her hand, but in her soul. If she gave it back, Omari would remain trapped. His suffering would never end. The cycle would continue. She lifted her chin. No. The spirits screeched in unison, a sound so shrill it felt like knives against her skin. The leader's form darkened. Then you will suffer. Water rushed from the cracked walls, swirling into tendrils that lashed toward her. Zarya barely had time to react. She dove to the side as a spear of water slammed into the spot where she had been standing. The impact shattered the stone. Her father unsheathed his sword, stepping forward. "Zarya, run." But she didn't run. She would not run. Not anymore. With the pearl clutched in one hand, she reached for the dagger at her waist. The spirits may have had the power of the ocean, but she was the daughter of a king. And she had come too far to lose now. The chamber erupted into chaos. Water slashed through the air like blades, stone crumbled beneath their feet, and the spirits' ghostly forms twisted and lashed in fury. But Zarya stood her ground. She knew she couldn't fight the sea. But she could defy it. She pressed the pearl against her chest and closed her eyes. And then, she called his name. Omari. The world shook. The spirits screamed. And in the distance, deep beneath the ocean's surface, something awoke. The moment Zarya called Omari's name, the entire palace shuddered. The spirits howled in agony, their forms writhing as if an invisible force had struck them. The walls cracked wider, and more water gushed through the openings, flooding the chamber floor. The black pearl burned against Zarya's palm, its pulse growing faster, stronger. Somewhere, in the depths of the ocean, he was waking up. King Osei's eyes widened. "Zarya, what have you done?" Zarya didn't answer. She could barely breathe. The air in the chamber twisted, heavy with unseen energy, pressing against her chest like the weight of a tidal wave. The water around her feet rippled violently, no longer just a flood but something alive, something responding. Then, she heard it. A deep, resonant voice, not from the spirits, not from her father, but from the pearl itself. Zarya. It was him. Omari. The name whispered against her skin like a current, curling around her like the tide pulling her out to sea. She felt it in her bones, in her blood. The spirits screeched in protest. He must not rise. The sea will not allow it. The tallest of them lunged, its clawed, water-like fingers aiming straight for Zarya's throat. But before it could reach her, the ocean answered. A roar erupted from nowhere and everywhere at once. The water on the chamber floor surged upward, forming a massive vortex. The spirits recoiled, their forms distorting as though the very essence of the sea had turned against them. And then, the walls exploded. Water rushed in like an unstoppable force, sweeping through the chamber with the strength of a tidal wave. Zarya's breath was stolen as the flood lifted her from her feet, tossing her into the raging current. She was drowning. She tried to fight, to kick toward the surface, but the water dragged her deeper, down, down, down. And in the abyss, she saw him. A figure in the darkness, his form shimmering beneath the waves. His long, powerful tail flickered like a shadow. His golden eyes, no longer dull and lifeless, but burning with something fierce and ancient, locked onto hers. Omari. Zarya reached for him, the pearl still clutched in her hand. And then, in a voice that sent tremors through the sea itself, he spoke. "You have awakened me." The ocean trembled. The spirits screamed. And the world as Zarya knew it, shifted forever. Zarya couldn't breathe. The ocean had swallowed her whole, dragging her into its endless depths. The water was ice cold, thick as oil around her limbs, pulling her down into the abyss. Yet, despite the crushing darkness, she felt him. Omari. His presence was like a storm beneath the waves, fierce, ancient, unbreakable. His golden eyes burned through the water, locking onto hers. His body shimmered with power, his long, scaled tail curling through the currents with effortless grace. But there was something else, something dangerous in the way he looked at her. For centuries, he had been nothing but a cursed prince, a specter of vengeance. But now, after so long, he was awake. And he was free. Or was he? Zarya's lungs burned as she reached for him, the black pearl clutched in her trembling fingers. The weight of it was unbearable now, as if it carried the whole of Omari's past within it. His voice was a deep rumble, felt more than heard. "Why have you woken me?" Zarya's heart pounded. The water around them churned violently, as if the sea itself was afraid. She opened her mouth to speak, but only bubbles escaped. Omari's expression darkened. He reached for her, his webbed fingers grazing her arm, then gripping it tightly. With one powerful stroke of his tail, he pulled her through the water. Zarya gasped as they surged upward, bursting through the surface. She coughed violently, gulping in air as Omari held her against his chest. The night sky stretched above them, vast and endless, the moon casting silver streaks over the restless ocean. She was alive. But the danger was far from over. Omari's arms remained firm around her. His gaze flickered with something unreadable, anger, curiosity, longing. "You called my name," he said, voice smooth as the waves. "You reached into the abyss to wake me." Zarya's chest rose and fell. "I had to." His golden eyes glowed. "Do you know what you've done?" The ocean shuddered. Zarya stiffened as she realized the waves weren't moving naturally anymore. They were obeying him. The water bent around them, shifting with his every breath, his every thought. He was powerful. Too powerful. The spirits had feared him for a reason. And now, they would come for him. For them. Zarya's grip on the pearl tightened. "We have to break the curse." Omari's expression darkened. "You do not understand, princess." His voice was quiet, dangerous. "The curse is not just on me." Zarya's stomach twisted. "What do you mean?" Omari's fingers brushed against the pearl in her hand, his touch sending a pulse of energy through her skin. His eyes burned with an emotion she couldn't name. "The moment you awoke me, you changed everything." His tail flicked beneath the water, sending ripples across the surface. "The sea knows what you have done. It will not let me go so easily." The wind howled. The waves grew restless. And in the distance, shadows began to rise from the water. The spirits were coming. Omari turned, his grip on Zarya tightening. "If you wish to survive," he said, his voice low and dangerous, "you must trust me." Zarya's heart pounded. The spirits were closing in, their voices echoing across the sea. She had awakened a cursed prince. Now, she had to fight to keep him. The ocean churned violently beneath them, the waves thrashing like restless beasts. The air had changed, it was no longer just the salty wind of the open sea. It was thick with power, humming with something ancient, something furious. Zarya's breath came fast, her heart hammering against her ribs. The spirits were coming. She could see them now, rising from the depths, their ghostly forms twisting like smoke above the waves. Their hollow eyes burned like embers, their whispering voices weaving into the wind. He must not live. He must not rise. Zarya swallowed hard. She turned to Omari, who remained still, his golden eyes fixed on the spirits. But he was not afraid. He was angry. The sea trembled beneath him, waves bending at his command, responding to his fury. His long, scaled tail flicked through the water, creating ripples of power. Zarya's fingers curled around the black pearl. "What do we do?" Omari's gaze flickered to her, unreadable. "We fight." Before Zarya could respond, the first spirit lunged. A spear of water shot through the air, aimed directly at Omari's chest. But he was faster. With a flick of his wrist, the water twisted midair, turning against its own master. The spear reversed course, striking the spirit with crushing force. The creature shrieked, its form unraveling into mist. But there were more. Dozens. Hundreds. The sea itself had turned against them. Zarya's mind raced. She had no magic, no control over the water like Omari did. But she had something else. The pearl. She could feel its energy pulsing against her palm. It was more than just a relic, it was a piece of Omari's soul. It was connected to him. And if the spirits feared it, that meant it held power. Zarya took a deep breath and lifted the pearl high. A shockwave of energy burst from its core, blindingly bright, sending ripples through the sea. The spirits reeled back, their howls turning to shrieks of pain. Omari's eyes widened slightly. "What did you just do?" "I don't know," Zarya admitted breathlessly. Omari didn't hesitate. "Then do it again." Another spirit lunged. Zarya thrust the pearl forward, and a second pulse of light erupted. The spirit screeched, its form shattering like glass before vanishing into the wind. The spirits hesitated now, their glowing eyes narrowing in uncertainty. Zarya's breath came hard, but she met Omari's gaze. "We can win." A slow smile curved his lips. "Yes," he murmured. "We can." And with that, the ocean erupted into war. The ocean exploded around them. Spirits shrieked as the waves rose like living hands, twisting into massive tendrils of water. The sea was no longer just water, it was rage, vengeance, hunger. The spirits controlled it, bending it to their will, and they wanted Omari gone. Zarya barely had time to react before the first wave crashed toward them. Omari moved faster than thought. With a flick of his tail, he spun through the water, pulling Zarya along with him. The wave slammed down just where they had been, sending a tower of mist into the air. Zarya gasped, clinging tightly to Omari's arm. "There are too many of them." Omari's golden eyes burned like fire against the storm. "We don't need to fight them all. Just the leader." Zarya's grip tightened on the black pearl. "Who?" Omari's gaze flicked past the swirling spirits, locking onto a single figure hovering just above the water's surface. It was different from the rest. Where the other spirits were shifting, misty figures, this one was solid, tall and draped in a flowing robe of deep blue. Its face was carved from darkness, its hollow eyes glowing like the depths of the ocean at night. In one skeletal hand, it held a staff of twisted coral, swirling with unnatural energy. The Spirit King. Zarya felt a chill deepen in her bones. The air itself seemed to bow beneath this being's presence. The sea, once raging, stilled slightly in its presence, like a wild beast awaiting its master's command. Then, it spoke. "You have broken the cycle." Its voice wasn't loud, yet it filled the sky. It was everywhere, echoing through the water, vibrating in the very marrow of Zarya's bones. Omari's expression didn't waver. "You bound me for centuries. You should have known I would return." The Spirit King tilted its head. "You were never meant to wake, lost one." And the girl, its gaze turned to Zarya. "She has interfered." The pearl in her hand pulsed violently, responding to the spirit's words. The Spirit King lifted its staff. Instantly, the waves froze in midair, solidifying into jagged spires of ice. The wind howled as the temperature dropped, turning the humid night into bitter cold. The spirits hissed, their forms warping, growing larger, darker. The ocean itself had turned against them. Zarya's breath hitched. She had fought before, fought against warriors, against betrayal, against fate. But this was something else entirely. Omari's voice was calm, but dangerous. "I will not be bound again." The Spirit King extended a long, clawed finger toward them. "Then you will drown." The ice shattered. And the final battle began. The ocean roared to life. The sky above them turned dark as the Spirit King's power spread through the air like poison. The waves, once chaotic, now moved with purpose, their jagged peaks rising higher and higher. Zarya barely had time to think before the first attack came. A massive column of water twisted from the sea, spiraling toward them with terrifying speed. Omari moved first. With a sweep of his arm, the water answered his command, splitting apart just before impact. The redirected wave crashed harmlessly into the ocean, but already, another was forming. Zarya turned to Omari, her heart pounding. "We can't just block forever. We need to fight back." Omari's golden eyes flickered to her, sharp and assessing. "You are right," he said, his voice like a storm barely held in check. Then, he let go of her. Zarya barely had time to react before Omari surged forward, meeting the spirits head-on. He moved like the sea itself, fluid, powerful, unstoppable. With every motion of his tail, the water obeyed. A massive wall of water rose at his command, crashing down upon the nearest spirits, scattering their forms like mist in the wind. Another wave formed behind him, but this time, he did not redirect it, he used it. Omari twisted through the current, becoming one with the ocean, using its force to drive himself forward. He struck through the spirits with claws of liquid steel, his eyes burning with centuries of fury. But the Spirit King remained untouched. It hovered above the battle, unmoving, watching as the ocean twisted and screamed beneath its power. Zarya's stomach tightened. The real fight had yet to begin. She looked down at the black pearl in her hand. It still pulsed with energy, reacting to the spirit's presence. She could feel the magic within it, coiling like a living thing, waiting to be unleashed. Her grip tightened. If she could awaken Omari, then maybe, just maybe, she could do something more. Something that could turn the tide. Taking a deep breath, she closed her eyes and focused. The sea whispered in her ears. The spirits howled. And then, the pearl answered. A sudden rush of warmth spread through her body. Energy pulsed through her veins, flooding her limbs with power she had never felt before. The world around her sharpened, every crashing wave, every whisper of the wind, every flicker of movement clearer than ever before. Zarya's eyes snapped open, glowing with unearthly light. And for the first time, the sea listened to her. The Spirit King's head turned sharply. It felt it too. Zarya's breath came in quick gasps, but she lifted the pearl high, her voice ringing across the water. Enough. The ocean froze. The spirits stopped. Even Omari, caught mid-motion, turned toward her, his expression unreadable. The black pearl pulsed in her palm, brighter than ever. And then, the Spirit King moved. It lifted its coral staff high, and the sky cracked open with a burst of blinding lightning. The final battle had begun. The sky split open. A crack of lightning tore through the darkness, striking the ocean's surface with a deafening roar. The sea shuddered under its force, waves rolling outward in massive, spiraling arcs. Zarya could feel the power in the air, thick like smoke, pressing against her chest. The black pearl burned in her palm, its light pulsing wildly. The Spirit King hovered above the raging sea, its skeletal form wreathed in mist. Its hollow eyes locked onto Zarya, and she felt its voice, deep and endless like the ocean itself. You should not have touched the pearl, child. Zarya's fingers tightened around it. She could feel something changing inside her, as if the magic of the sea had woven itself into her blood. Her heart pounded in her chest, her veins thrumming with energy she didn't understand. Omari turned to her, golden eyes flickering with something unreadable. He was watching her closely now, not just as an ally, but as something more. Something dangerous. The waves surged again, faster this time. The Spirit King raised its staff, and the sea obeyed. Massive torrents of water shot toward them, twisting into vicious spirals meant to consume. Omari moved first, cutting through the water like a spear. His tail shimmered in the moonlight as he darted forward, arms outstretched. The sea bent around him, shielding him from the Spirit King's attacks. But Zarya didn't run. Instead, she lifted the pearl high. And for the first time, she commanded the ocean. The water shook. The waves shifted. The pearl's energy exploded outward, sending a shockwave through the sea. The spirits reeled back, their ghostly forms flickering wildly. Even the Spirit King hesitated, its misty body distorting under the pearl's power. Zarya's breath came fast, but she didn't falter. She was part of this now. The ocean had accepted her. The magic was hers to wield. Omari turned to her, eyes wide with something close to awe. "You," his voice was quiet, almost reverent. "You are connected to the sea." Zarya swallowed. "I don't know how. But I can feel it." The Spirit King's form twisted, its power crackling in the air. "Then you are more dangerous than I thought." Zarya's grip tightened on the pearl. The Spirit King was afraid. And for the first time, she realized. This was never just about Omari's curse. It was about the power he carried. The power that Zarya had just awakened. The sea was no longer just a battleground. It was hers to command. And now, the Spirit King knew it. The real fight had just begun. The ocean shivered under Zarya's touch. The waves, once chaotic and raging, stilled for a moment, as if waiting for her command. The black pearl in her palm pulsed in time with her heartbeat, its warmth spreading through her veins. She felt everything, the push and pull of the tide, the whisper of the currents, the silent song of the deep. She had never wielded magic before. Yet now, the sea listened to her. Omari was watching her carefully, his golden eyes filled with something between wonder and caution. He, too, could feel the change. But the Spirit King was furious. Its hollow eyes burned brighter, its misty form twisting violently in the air. "You were never meant to hold such power." The voice rumbled like a storm, vibrating in the marrow of Zarya's bones. The Spirit King raised its staff. The ocean obeyed. A wave unlike any before rose from the depths, towering high into the sky. It churned with dark energy, its surface writhing with trapped spirits, their agonized faces twisting in silent screams. Omari tensed. "Move." But Zarya didn't run. Instead, she stepped forward. The pearl in her hand burned like fire, but she didn't let go. The wave descended, rushing toward them like a mountain falling from the sky. Zarya thrust out her hand. The ocean froze. The wave halted midair, trembling as if caught between two forces. The spirits within it howled, their bodies distorting in pain. Zarya's mind was clear now. She wasn't just fighting for herself. She was fighting for Omari. For the truth. For freedom. She clenched her fist. And the wave shattered. Water sprayed into the sky like shards of glass, raining down in glittering droplets. The spirits screamed as they were torn apart, their forms dissolving into mist. Omari stared at her. So did the Spirit King. For the first time in centuries, the sea had denied its master. Zarya had defied fate. The Spirit King's form flickered, its misty body distorting as the balance of power shifted. "You," it whispered, its voice no longer as strong as before. It was weakening. Zarya lifted the pearl once more, stepping toward the fading specter. The ocean belonged to her now. And she was ready to end this war. The ocean trembled beneath Zarya's power. For the first time in centuries, the Spirit King, ruler of the sea's restless dead, was losing control. The mist around its skeletal form flickered like a dying flame, and its glowing eyes burned with something new, fear. Zarya clenched the black pearl in her hand, feeling its energy coil around her like an invisible shield. The waves still raged, but they no longer fought against her. They obeyed. Omari moved to her side, his golden eyes never leaving the Spirit King. "You are changing," he murmured, his voice filled with something unreadable. Zarya exhaled slowly, the power still humming beneath her skin. "I know." She had felt it the moment she touched the pearl, the ocean's magic had chosen her. And now, the Spirit King knew it too. Its hollow voice cracked like thunder. "You are meddling with forces you do not understand, girl." Zarya's jaw tightened. "I understand enough." The Spirit King raised its staff. The sky darkened. The sea convulsed, waves thrashing wildly as shadows twisted beneath the surface. Something was coming. Omari's body tensed. He's calling on the drowned. Zarya's breath caught. The drowned. Souls trapped at the bottom of the ocean. Warriors, sorcerers, kings, those who had been swallowed by the sea, their spirits bound to its depths. And now, they were rising. The water boiled, and then they emerged. Ghostly figures burst from the sea, their hollow eyes glowing blue, their forms wrapped in dripping seaweed and tattered armor. Some carried rusted weapons, others bore chains that dragged behind them. Their faces were blank, empty, but Zarya could feel their hunger. They were not here to fight. They were here to consume. The Spirit King's voice rang through the night. End them. The drowned lunged. Omari moved first, his tail whipping through the water as he struck. He spun, slicing through one of the spirits with his claws, but the ghostly form only reformed, swirling like mist. Zarya reacted instinctively. She lifted the pearl, channeling the power inside it. The ocean answered. A massive pulse of energy rippled outward, colliding with the drowned. The spirits shrieked, their forms unstable, flickering as if caught between two worlds. It wasn't enough to destroy them. But it hurt them. The Spirit King hissed. You think you can command the dead? Zarya's eyes burned with determination. I don't have to command them. She lifted her other hand. And the sea itself rose. A tidal wave exploded from behind her, crashing down upon the spirits, dragging them into the depths. The drowned screamed as the water swallowed them whole. Zarya didn't stop. She could feel the ocean's power pulsing inside her, stronger than ever. The spirits were bound to the sea, but so was she. She didn't need to destroy them. She needed to set them free. The black pearl glowed fiercely as she whispered the words that came to her like a forgotten song. Return to the depths. A sudden silence filled the air. Then, the drowned warriors stopped. Their hollow eyes dimmed. The chains that bound them to the Spirit King snapped, dissolving into mist. One by one, they sank back into the ocean, their bodies fading like whispers in the tide. The sea had released them. The Spirit King let out a furious, inhuman scream. Its staff cracked, fractures spreading like lightning across its surface. Its power was breaking. Zarya stepped forward, gripping the pearl tightly. This ends now. The Spirit King's glowing eyes dimmed. For the first time, the ruler of the dead looked afraid. And Zarya knew. She was finally winning. The Spirit King's scream ripped through the air, shaking the very foundations of the ocean. The mist around its skeletal form withered, unraveling like fabric caught in a storm. The staff in its hand cracked further, the fractures spreading like veins of dying power. Zarya stood firm, the black pearl pulsing in her grasp. The sea no longer raged against her, it had become her ally. The spirits that once obeyed the Spirit King now drifted aimlessly, their chains broken. Omari hovered beside her, his muscles tense, his golden eyes filled with unreadable emotions. The Spirit King's hollow gaze burned into her. You were never meant to wield this power. Zarya clenched her fists. And yet, here I stand. The Spirit King's form twisted violently, its body flickering between solid and shadow. It was weakening. But its rage had not diminished. With a final, desperate cry, it raised its shattered staff, summoning the last of its power. The sky split open, and a wave unlike any before rose from the abyss. It was no ordinary wave, it was the sea itself, compressed into a monstrous force strong enough to crush kingdoms. Omari grabbed Zarya's arm, pulling her close. This is it. If we do not stop this, we will be lost. Zarya looked up at him. Then she looked at the Spirit King. At the wave that could wipe them from existence. And she made her choice. She would not run. She would not hide. She would command. Zarya closed her eyes. She let the ocean's magic flow through her, filling every corner of her soul. She reached for the black pearl's power, not with fear, but with understanding. The sea was not the spirit king's to control. It belonged to no one. It belonged to itself. And tonight, it would be free. Zarya opened her eyes. They glowed like the moon. She lifted the pearl high above her head. And the sea obeyed. The monstrous wave froze in midair, trembling under an unseen force. The Spirit King's hollow scream filled the night as its greatest weapon refused to fall. Zarya's voice was quiet. "You have taken enough." She thrust her hands forward. And the wave collapsed inward. The water did not crash down upon them. Instead, it surged toward the Spirit King like a beast unleashed. The wave wrapped around it, swallowing it whole. The Spirit King thrashed, its misty body dissolving as the sea reclaimed its own. Its staff shattered into dust, its power finally broken. And then, silence. The storm stilled. The wind ceased. The Spirit King was gone. Zarya stood there, her breath coming in short gasps. The black pearl in her palm was now dim, its purpose fulfilled. Omari exhaled, his body relaxing for the first time. He turned to her, his golden eyes filled with something unreadable. "You did it." Zarya looked at her hands, then at the calm sea around them. She had won. But deep in her heart, she knew. This was not the end. It was only the beginning. The sea whispered. Not in words, but in a deep, endless hum that filled Zarya's bones. It was a sound she had never noticed before, a rhythm that pulsed through the water, through her, through everything. The Spirit King was gone. But the ocean had not yet released her. Zarya tightened her grip on the black pearl, its once burning light now a dull ember in her palm. The sky above had cleared, revealing the silver glow of the moon. The waves had settled, but the air around them still hummed with power. Something was coming. Omari hovered beside her, his tail barely moving in the water. He was watching her, golden eyes flickering with something unreadable. "You feel it too," she whispered. He nodded. "The sea is waiting." Waiting for what? Before she could ask, the water beneath them shifted. A deep rumbling echoed through the ocean floor, and then, it rose. A shape, vast and ancient, emerged from the depths. It was not a spirit, nor a man, nor a beast. It was something older than all three. It was the ocean's will. A being of water, its body formed of swirling currents and sea foam. Its eyes, endless and shifting like the tide, locked onto Zarya. She could not move. She could not breathe. The ocean itself was looking at her. When it spoke, its voice was neither male nor female, neither kind nor cruel. It was simply vast. "You have broken the chains." Zarya swallowed hard. "Yes. You have freed the drowned." She hesitated. Then nodded. "The oceans will tilt at its head, waves rippling through its form. And yet, your journey is not over." Zarya's fingers twitched around the pearl. "I don't understand." The ocean sighed, a sound like the rolling tide. "The curse is not yet broken." Zarya's breath hitched. "What?" Omari stiffened beside her. "But the Spirit King is dead." The oceans did not blink. His death was only the first step. Zarya's heartbeat pounded in her ears. "Then what must I do?" For a moment, the ocean was silent. Then it spoke. "To break the curse, you must choose." Zarya's mouth went dry. "Choose what?" The waves shifted, wrapping around her like a whisper. "You carry the blood of your ancestors. The same blood that betrayed Omari. The same blood that doomed him to the sea." Zarya's chest tightened. She knew what the ocean was asking before it even spoke the words. The final chain can only be broken with a life. A heavy silence settled between them. Zarya didn't want to ask. She already knew the answer. But still, she forced the words past her lips. Whose life? The ocean's will did not waver. Your father, the king. The world tilted. The waves swirled, but Zarya could no longer feel the water. The air in her lungs felt too tight, too heavy. Her father. Her own blood. The price for Omari's freedom was not a battle, nor a spell, nor a sacrifice of magic. It was a life. Omari said nothing. But when she turned to him, his golden eyes were filled with something she had never seen before. Hope. And fear. She felt her stomach drop. She had fought against fate. She had broken chains. But in the end, it still demanded a price. And now, she had to make the most impossible choice of all. The sea held its breath. Zarya's heart pounded in her chest as the ocean's will loomed before her, its vast, shifting form waiting. Its words echoed in her mind, over and over, like the rolling tide. To break the curse, you must choose. She turned to Omari, searching his face for some kind of answer, but his golden eyes only reflected the turmoil inside her. Is this true? She whispered. Is this the only way? Omari's gaze flickered with something unreadable, regret. It was always the price, Zarya. His voice was quiet. The curse was woven in blood. It can only be broken with blood. Her throat tightened. No. There has to be another way. She turned back to the ocean's will. I will do anything else. Anything. But I cannot, her voice cracked. I cannot kill my own father. The ocean sighed, waves curling around her like a whisper. You cannot fight what was written. Zarya clenched her fists. Then I will rewrite it. The ocean's will tilted its head. Would you defy fate itself? Zarya's voice was steady now. Yes. Omari inhaled sharply, but he did not look away from her. The ocean's will was silent for a long moment, its shifting form rippling with something like amusement. Then it spoke, then you must find another sacrifice. Zarya froze. What? The ocean's will loomed closer. If you will not take the life of your father, you must offer another in his place. Another life. Another soul to weigh against Omari's curse. Zarya's mind raced. Who could take her father's place? Who else carried the blood of betrayal? And then... she knew. She knew exactly who. A name slipped from her lips before she could stop it. Oba. Omari's body went still. The ocean's will did not move, did not blink. But somehow, she knew it had accepted her answer. Oba. Her uncle. Her father's younger brother. The one who had always whispered in the shadows, who had always wanted the throne for himself. The one who knew about the curse but did nothing, who even rejoiced in it, hoping that one day, it would be her father who paid the price. The one who had plotted, manipulated, and waited for the day the crown would be his. His blood was the same as her father's. And his hands were not clean. The ocean's will watched her. A sacrifice must be willing or forced. Zarya's stomach twisted. She knew Oba would never give himself willingly. Which meant she would have to take him. Omari exhaled, his tail curling in the water. This is a dangerous path, Zarya. She turned to him, her voice quiet but firm. So is every other path we've taken. He held her gaze for a long moment. Then, finally, he nodded. Zarya looked back at the ocean's will. I will bring you Oba. The sea rumbled with something like satisfaction. Then your fate is set. The water around them began to churn, pulling them upward. The ocean's will faded back into the sea, its part in this story done. And Zarya knew. The real battle was just beginning. The ocean carried Zarya and Omari back to the surface with a force that felt almost urgent. It was as if the water itself could not wait for her to fulfill her promise, to bring it a life in exchange for Omari's freedom. Zarya's heart pounded as she broke through the surface, gasping for breath. The moon hung low and heavy in the sky, its silver light casting long shadows over the palace walls in the distance. The waves gently placed her on the shore, withdrawing as though watching her every move. Omari rose beside her, his golden eyes flickering in the darkness. His tail shimmered for a moment before the magic of the sea wove around him, transforming his lower half into strong, human legs. He had told her before that he could only walk on land for a short time. But tonight, he didn't seem concerned. Because tonight, they were no longer just fighting against a curse. They were hunting a man. Oba. Zarya swallowed hard as she turned to Omari. If we do this, there's no going back. Omari's expression was unreadable. There was never a way back, Zarya. She looked toward the towering palace walls, the place she had once called home. A place that now felt cold and unfamiliar. The halls she once danced through as a child, the chambers where she had dreamed of a future. And within those halls, behind golden doors, Oba sat in the shadows, waiting for the day he would wear the crown. But tonight, he would wait for death instead. She took a breath. Then let's end this. The Palace of Secrets. Getting inside the palace was easier than Zarya expected. The guards knew her, worshipped her, even, and they did not question her sudden return. None of them even noticed the man in the hood beside her. But as she passed through the halls, a heavy feeling settled in her chest. The walls that once protected her now felt like a cage closing in. Omari walked silently beside her, his golden eyes scanning the corridors. Where is he? Zarya knew exactly where to find her uncle. He always stayed in the West Wing, in the chamber where he kept his scrolls and his secrets. Where he had watched and waited as the curse unfolded. Where he had prayed not for salvation, but for her father's fall. Zarya's fists clenched as they reached the door. She could hear him inside. Muttering to himself. Plotting. Omari reached for the dagger at his side, but Zarya lifted a hand. No. Omari frowned. What? Zarya took a steady breath. I have to be the one to do this. His gaze searched hers, as if trying to find the hesitation he expected. But there was none. Zarya was done being a princess who waited for fate to decide her path. Tonight, she would carve her own. Omari nodded and stepped aside. Zarya pushed open the door. Oba sat at a low wooden table, a goblet of wine in his hand. His dark eyes flicked up as she entered, and for a moment, he looked genuinely surprised. Then he smiled. Niece, he said smoothly, rising to his feet. I had not expected you back so soon. Tell me, did you find what you were looking for in the ocean? Zarya did not answer. She stepped inside, letting the door swing shut behind her. Oba's eyes narrowed. You look different. Zarya was different. She was no longer the girl who feared the curse. No longer the girl who sought to escape her fate. She was the girl who would end it. She stepped forward. Did you know? Oba tilted his head. Know what, dear niece? That the curse could only be broken by blood. Her voice was calm, but her fingers twitched at her side. That a life had to be taken. Oba sighed, as if this was all tedious to him. Of course. Zarya's breath caught. He knew. He had always known. And he had done nothing. No, he had waited. Because he had wanted it to be her father. Zarya's chest burned, but her voice remained steady. Then you must also know that it no longer has to be my father. Oba raised a brow. Oh. Zarya took another step forward. The ocean made a bargain with me, she said softly. It does not care which bloodline ends the curse. Only that someone must die. Oba's smile faltered. For the first time, she saw fear flicker across his face. He took a slow step backward. You wouldn't dare. Zarya's fingers curled around the dagger hidden in the folds of her dress. Her heartbeat was steady. Her choice was made. She would dare. Because for the first time in her life, she was not simply a princess bound by fate. She was its breaker. And tonight, her uncle would be the one to fall. The room thickened with silence. Zarya's grip tightened around the dagger hidden in the folds of her dress. The weight of it was heavy, but not as heavy as the choice she had already made. Across the chamber, her uncle watched her carefully. The flickering lantern light cast shadows over his face, making his sharp features look even harsher. He had always been a man of quiet power, moving through the palace halls like a serpent in the grass, waiting for the right moment to strike. But tonight, he was the prey. Oba's eyes flickered to the door behind her. Then to the windows. He was already thinking of escape. Zarya took another step forward. There is no way out of this, she said. Oba scoffed, but his smirk was tight. You think you can threaten me, niece? You are still just a girl who... She moved before he could finish. The dagger flashed. Oba barely managed to step back in time, the blade slicing through the air where his throat had been. He stumbled, knocking over the table, sending the goblet of wine spilling across the floor. His face twisted in rage. You would dare spill royal blood, he hissed. Zarya did not hesitate. She lunged again. Oba dodged, but not fast enough. Her blade caught his arm, slicing through silk and skin. He let out a sharp hiss, clutching the wound as crimson bloomed against his robes. Zarya felt nothing. No hesitation. No regret. Only the knowledge that this had to be done. Oba's dark eyes burned with fury. You think you are strong enough to kill me? He sneered. I have spent my entire life preparing to take the throne. I will not fall to a foolish girl who thinks she understands power. Zarya tilted her head. Then you don't know me at all. And this time, when she struck, she did not miss. The end of Oba. The dagger plunged deep into Oba's chest. His breath hitched. His body went still. Zarya's fingers trembled around the hilt of the blade, but she did not pull away. She met her uncle's wide, disbelieving eyes and whispered. This is for the curse you let happen. For the throne you betrayed. And for the life you were so eager to steal. Oba gasped, shuddered, and fell. His body hit the ground with a dull thud. Blood pooled beneath him, dark and thick. His eyes were still open, locked in an expression of shock. The ocean had demanded a life. And now, it had won. Zarya slowly stepped back, her breathing uneven. It was done. It was finally done. The ocean's price. The room seemed to shrink around her. The air felt too thick. The weight of what she had just done pressed down on her shoulders, but before she could let it sink in, a wind howled through the chamber. Not a natural wind. A wind that carried the scent of salt and the whisper of the tides. The lanterns flickered. The spilled wine turned to seawater, swirling around Oba's lifeless body. The air crackled with something old and powerful. And then, the shadows in the corner of the room shifted. Omari emerged from the darkness, his golden eyes gleaming. He had watched everything unfold. He stepped toward her, slow and careful. It is done. Zarya's breath was shaky. The curse. Omari lifted a hand. And the room trembled. The curse had lived in his blood for centuries, chaining him to the sea, binding his soul in rage and sorrow. But now, Zarya felt it break. Like a rope snapping. Like a storm finally settling after years of raging. The ocean's whisper filled the room one last time. The debt has been paid. And then, silence. Omari inhaled sharply. For the first time since she had met him, he looked free. Zarya stared at him, her chest rising and falling in uneven breaths. She had done it. She had saved him. She had broken the curse. And yet, something about the way Omari was looking at her made her stomach twist. He took another step closer. Zarya. She frowned. What is it? His throat bobbed. I feel different. She swallowed. The curse is broken. That's what we wanted, isn't it? Omari hesitated. And then, the ground trembled beneath them. Not just the room. Not just the palace. But everything. The wind roared back to life, fierce and unrelenting. The very air around them darkened, the candlelight swallowed by deep, churning shadows. Zarya's stomach dropped. This wasn't freedom. Something was wrong. And then she realized. They had broken the curse. But they had unleashed something else. The air in the chamber thickened, pressing against Zarya's chest like 1,000 unseen hands. She could hear the distant roar of the ocean, though they were deep within the palace walls. The water was calling, no, screaming. Omari's golden eyes flickered as he clutched his chest. His breath came in sharp, uneven gasps. Zarya rushed forward. What's happening? Omari shuddered. I don't, his voice broke. He staggered, nearly falling to his knees. Then, his body convulsed. Zarya's heart pounded. She had seen him in pain before, had seen the magic of his curse pulse through him like a storm waiting to break. But this was different. This wasn't the curse leaving. This was something taking its place. Omari let out a strangled sound, his fingers curling into fists as dark tendrils of shadow began to rise from his skin. The golden shimmer of his eyes burned brighter, too bright. Zarya stumbled back, eyes widening in horror. The curse was broken. So why did it feel like something even worse had awakened? The truth buried beneath the waves. The curse was never just about me. Omari's voice was barely above a whisper, trembling with realization. Zarya shook her head. What are you saying? Omari's gaze lifted to hers, something haunted in his expression. My people, he rasped. They never wanted me to return. Zarya felt a shiver crawl down her spine. His people. The ones who had betrayed him centuries ago. The ones who had cast him into the sea and turned him into a monster. She had assumed they feared his vengeance. But now she understood. They had never feared him coming back. They had feared what would happen if he was freed. Zarya's hands trembled. Omari, what did we do? The room quaked again. A deep, guttural sound rumbled from the earth itself. The shadows writhing around Omari's body grew darker, pulsing like a heartbeat. And then, the walls of the chamber cracked open. Water surged in, flooding the floor in an instant. But this wasn't like before. The ocean wasn't guiding her this time. It was angry. The sea had accepted its price. But in doing so, they had unleashed something that had been buried beneath the waves for centuries. Something Omari's people had been willing to curse their own prince to contain. Something far worse than vengeance. The drowned one's rise. A sharp pain pierced Zarya's skull. A vision slammed into her mind like a tidal wave. She saw them. Dark figures standing beneath the ocean, their hollow eyes watching. Their bodies moved unnaturally, their limbs twisted with the weight of centuries beneath the waves. She recognized them. The ancient ones. The drowned souls of Omari's kingdom. The ones who had sunk with him. The ones who had been waiting. For this moment. For him to be freed. For the ocean's chains to be broken. And now. They were coming. Zarya's vision snapped away as the chamber exploded with power. Omari screamed. The shadows wrapped around him, pulling him downward, as if the sea itself was trying to claim him once more. His form flickered between man and monster, between prince and something else entirely. His golden eyes met hers, wild, desperate. Zarya, his voice was raw, filled with something she had never heard before. Fear. Then, he vanished beneath the rising waters. Zarya let out a choked gasp, stumbling forward. Omari. The ocean swallowed him whole. And behind him, through the broken walls, through the flood of seawater rushing in, the first shadowed figures began to rise from the depths. The drowned ones were here. And they were not alone. Zarya stood frozen as the dark figures emerged from the water. Their bodies dripped with seawater, their skin pale and bloated, their eyes black as the abyss. They moved with unnatural grace, their limbs twisting and bending as if the ocean still controlled them. The drowned ones. The cursed souls of Omari's fallen kingdom. And now, they were free. Zarya's heart pounded as she took a step back, her breath coming in ragged gasps. The palace walls around her groaned under the pressure of the invading sea, cracks snaking through the stone as water poured in. The once grand chamber was now half submerged, and the tide was still rising. But she didn't care about the water. She only cared about one thing. Omari was gone. The ocean had taken him. Zarya clenched her fists. No. She had not fought this hard, suffered this much, only to lose him now. She turned back to the creatures creeping toward her, their movements slow, deliberate, unnatural. And then, one of them spoke. "You have freed us." The voice was not human. It was like the sound of waves crashing against jagged rocks, like the whisper of the tide pulling something deep into the abyss. Zarya swallowed, her fingers tightening around the hilt of her dagger. "Who are you?" A tall figure stepped forward. Unlike the others, his skin still held some color, though it was an unnatural, sickly blue. His eyes were completely black, his long, wet braids clinging to his face. "I am Azza," he said, his lips curling into something almost like a smile. "The last king of the drowned." Zarya stiffened. Azza. She had heard that name before. Long ago, when she was a child, the palace storytellers had spoken of him. A rival king, one who had challenged Omari's rule. A warrior who had led his people into battle against the sorcerer king of the sea. Azza had lost. Or so the legend said. But now he stood before her, very much alive, or at least, something close to it. Zarya forced herself to meet his gaze. "Where is Omari?" Azza tilted his head. "Ah, the fallen prince. The one you tried so hard to save." Zarya's stomach twisted. "What have you done to him?" Azza chuckled, his laughter dark and hollow. "The ocean has reclaimed what was once hers. Just as it has reclaimed us." Zarya's blood ran cold. Omari was in the ocean. Surrounded by them. "Give him back," she demanded, her voice firm despite the fear twisting inside her. Azza's smile widened. "And why would we do that?" The drowned ones lurched closer, their inky black eyes glistening like wet stones. Zarya's mind raced. She had no army, no magic strong enough to fight back. She had only herself. And yet, she would not run. Because if Omari was still down there, if he was still alive, then she would bring him back. Even if she had to face the ocean itself. Zarya stood her ground as the drowned ones surrounded her. The air was thick with the scent of salt and decay, the chilling touch of the sea licking at her ankles. Azza watched her with amusement. "You are braver than I expected, princess," he mused. "Most would be trembling in fear by now." Zarya's grip tightened around her dagger. "I don't fear ghosts." Azza chuckled. "Oh, we are far worse than ghosts." He took a slow step forward, his bare feet silent against the water-covered stone. We are the forgotten. The betrayed. The ones the world tried to erase. Zarya lifted her chin. Omari was betrayed, too. Azza's expression darkened. Yes. And yet, here you are, fighting for him. He tilted his head. Why? Zarya didn't hesitate. Because I love him. The drowned one stilled. For a moment, the air itself seemed to shift, as if the very ocean was listening. Azza's dark eyes flickered with something unreadable. Love, he murmured. What a fragile thing. Zarya ignored his mockery. Tell me where he is. Azza studied her, then smirked. Very well, princess. I will tell you where your prince is. Zarya's heart leapt, but Azza raised a hand. But first, you must make a choice. Zarya tensed. What choice? Azza leaned in. You can go to him, Zarya. But if you do, you will never be able to leave. Her breath caught. What do you mean? Azza's smile was slow, predatory. The ocean has claimed him. If you step into its depths, it will claim you, too. Zarya's pulse hammered. Omari was alive. But if she went to him, would she ever be able to return? She glanced at the stormy waters, the dark abyss waiting below. She had spent her entire life on land. The palace, the kingdom, everything she had ever known, it would all be lost. But she had already lost so much. And if she let Omari go now, she would lose him forever. Zarya exhaled slowly, her hands steady. Then she met Azza's gaze. Take me to him. Azza grinned. And with a wave of his hand, the sea swallowed her whole. The moment the water closed over Zarya, the world disappeared. The palace, the sky, the walls, everything vanished into a vast, endless blue. She had expected to struggle, to feel the crushing pressure of the ocean dragging her down. But instead, the water held her gently, as if the sea itself had accepted her presence. She could breathe. Zarya gasped, realizing her lungs were full of air despite being completely submerged. She glanced down, the ocean stretching endlessly below her. It was dark, an abyss with no end in sight. And yet, somewhere deep within those waters, Omari was waiting. I'm coming. With a kick of her legs, she swam down. The kingdom beneath the sea. Zarya had never imagined what lay beneath the ocean. She had only heard whispers, stories of lost cities swallowed by the waves, of glowing creatures that lurked in the depths. But as she descended, the darkness gave way to light. She gasped. A city lay below her. A sunken kingdom. Towering structures of coral and stone stood against the ocean floor, their surfaces shimmering with golden light. Bridges of pearlescent bone arched over streets paved with shells. Schools of luminous fish darted between the ruins, their bodies glowing softly in the shadows. And at the center of it all, a massive palace of black stone rose from the depths, its entrance guarded by two colossal sea serpents, their eyes burning with an eerie blue light. This was Omari's kingdom. Or at least, what remained of it. Zarya's breath caught in her throat. How long had this place been buried beneath the waves? How long had it waited for him? She swam forward, the currents pulling her toward the palace. And then, she saw him. Omari's fate. Omari was chained. He knelt at the base of the palace steps, his arms pulled above his head by thick, blackened chains that pulsed with dark magic. His once golden eyes were dull, his body covered in wounds that glowed faintly with an unnatural blue light. He looked up, his gaze barely registering her presence. Zarya. His voice was hoarse, broken. Zarya's heart twisted. Omari. She swam forward, reaching for him. Only to be thrown back by an invisible force. A deep, thundering voice echoed through the water. He belongs to us now." Zarya whirled around. Azza stood atop the palace steps, the drowned ones at his side. His black eyes gleamed with amusement. "You should have listened, princess." Azza spread his arms. "The moment you entered these waters, you became part of the ocean's will." Zarya's breath hitched. "You lied to me." Azza laughed. "No, dear princess. I told you the truth. You wanted to find him. And now, you have." His expression darkened. "But you cannot take him back." Zarya turned back to Omari, desperation rising in her chest. "Omari, fight it. We broke the curse, you're free." Omari's fingers twitched, his gaze flickering with something, recognition. Then, his body shuddered. The water around him darkened, shadows curling from his skin. Zarya's stomach dropped. The curse was gone. But something else had taken its place. Omari wasn't just trapped. He was becoming one of them. The ocean's price. Zarya's mind raced. She had broken the curse, so why was this happening? Then she remembered. Azza had said it himself. The ocean had claimed Omari. Even without the curse, the sea would never let him go. Unless... Zarya's chest tightened. Unless she gave it something greater. She turned back to Azza, her voice steady despite the fear clawing at her ribs. "What do you want?" Azza raised an eyebrow. "Oh. You took him. You chained him. There must be something you want in return." Azza studied her for a long moment. Then, his lips curled into a slow, dangerous smile. "There is one thing." Zarya swallowed. "Tell me." Azza's black eyes burned. "Your life." Zarya's breath hitched. Azza continued, his voice smooth as silk. "You broke his curse. But the ocean does not release its captive so easily." He stepped forward, circling her like a predator. "If you take his place, the sea will set him free." Zarya's heart pounded. She had come here to save him. She had been willing to give up her throne. Her kingdom. But was she willing to give up her life? Omari let out a choked sound, his chains rattling as he struggled against them. "Zarya, don't." Zarya turned to him. Their eyes met. She had never seen him look so afraid. She exhaled softly. Then, she faced Azza once more. "Fine." Azza's grin widened. "Then let us begin." The water around them shifted, the ocean itself whispering in approval. And deep within the shadows, something began to stir. The moment Zarya spoke her agreement, the water around her hummed with power. The ocean had heard her. It had accepted her sacrifice. Azza's smile deepened, and he raised a hand of bone, his fingers curling in a slow, deliberate motion. The shadows in the water stirred. "The trade is set," Azza murmured. "A soul for a soul." Zarya's breath came in short, sharp bursts, but she didn't let her fear show. She had made her choice. If this was the only way to save Omari, then so be it. Azza stepped forward, his inky black gaze piercing through her. "Do you understand what this means, princess?" he asked. "This is not death. This is something far worse." Zarya's jaw tightened. "I don't care. Just let him go." Azza tilted his head, amused. Brave words. Behind her, Omari struggled against his chains. "Zarya, no. You don't know what you're doing." She turned to him, her heart breaking at the desperation in his eyes. "I do," she whispered. "And I would do it again." Omari shook his head violently. "Zarya, please." Azza snapped his fingers. A force slammed into Omari's chest, and he let out a choked cry, his body arching as his chains suddenly snapped free. Zarya gasped as Omari's body began rising toward the surface, the water lifting him as though carrying him away. "Wait," she cried, reaching out. But an invisible wall kept her back. Omari's golden eyes met hers, panic flashing through them. "Zarya," he shouted. His voice was muffled by the ocean, but she could still hear the raw fear in it. "No. Don't do this. Fight it." Before he could finish, the current ripped him away. He was gone. Torn from the depths. Zarya's heart shattered. Then, pain exploded through her chest. She gasped, her body arching violently as the water around her thickened, turning colder than ice. Something was changing inside her. Her lungs burned, her skin tightened, her bones stretched and twisted. She screamed, but no sound came out. Dark tendrils of shadow and water coiled around her, pulling her deeper into the abyss. Her vision blurred, and through the haze, she saw Azza watching her with something like pity. "This is your fate now, princess," he murmured. Zarya's body convulsed as the ocean wrapped around her like a second skin. The last thing she saw before the darkness swallowed her whole was the surface slipping farther and farther away. Zarya didn't know how much time had passed. She floated in a world of silence and shadow, her body weightless, her mind lost in a vast, endless sea. And then, a voice called to her. "Zarya." It was soft at first. Distant. Like a ripple across still water. But then it grew stronger, more urgent. "Zarya, wake up." Her eyes fluttered open. At first, she saw nothing but blue, deep, endless, and ancient. Then, slowly, the world came into focus. She was still underwater. But something was different. Zarya reached for her face, and her fingers brushed against her skin, only to find it was no longer the same. Her breath caught. Her fingers weren't the soft, warm hands of a princess. They were paler, almost silver in color. Webbed. She looked down at herself. And her heart stopped. Her legs were gone. In their place was a long, sleek tail, covered in dark, iridescent scales that shimmered like the night sea. She had become a merman. Or something worse. Panic crashed over her, her pulse thundering in her ears. No. No, this couldn't be happening. She had sacrificed herself for Omari, she had known she wouldn't return to the surface. But she hadn't expected this. A deep, rumbling laughter echoed through the water. She looked up. And Azza was there. Standing at the entrance of the palace, watching her with a mixture of amusement and something else, satisfaction. "Welcome home," he said, spreading his arms. "Princess no longer. You are now one of us." Zarya's stomach twisted. Home? No. This wasn't her home. This was a prison. And she was trapped. Zarya's pulse pounded in her ears. Her new tail twitched beneath her, the iridescent scales catching the dim light of the deep. She tried to move, to swim away, but the water itself felt different now, thicker, heavier, as though it no longer obeyed her the way it had before. Azza drifted closer, his black eyes glinting with triumph. "Do you feel it, princess?" he murmured. "The ocean's embrace. The power that runs through your veins now." Zarya clenched her fists, her breath ragged. She did feel it. A strange energy pulsed within her, something dark and ancient, something that whispered to her in a language she did not understand. The water around her stirred, responding to her emotions in a way that felt unnatural. This wasn't just a transformation. This was a binding. She had not simply become a mermaid. She had become one of the drowned ones. Her gaze snapped to Azza, rage burning through her veins. "You tricked me." Azza chuckled. "No, child. I only gave you what you asked for." He tilted his head. "Omari is free. You paid the price. The ocean is pleased. Zarya's stomach twisted. She had thought she was saving Omari from his cursed fate. But in doing so, she had condemned herself to one far worse. She turned her head upward, toward the endless water above. Somewhere beyond those waves, Omari was free. But what would he find when he woke? Would he come back for her? Or was she lost forever? Azza's deep voice pulled her back. You have a choice, Zarya. She turned to him, her breath shallow. You can fight it, Azza continued. Struggle against your new existence, refuse what you have become. And you will fade, as all the lost ones do. He gave her a slow, knowing smile. Or, you can embrace it. Zarya swallowed hard. He meant embrace the darkness. Become one of them. She shook her head. I won't serve you. Azza's smile did not falter. Oh, but you already do. Zarya's body shivered as the weight of his words settled over her. Was he right? Had the ocean already claimed her soul? Then, she felt it. A pull. A whisper in the back of her mind, not in Azza's voice, but something older. Something deeper. A force that did not just rule the ocean, it was the ocean. Her breath hitched. She wasn't just a prisoner. The ocean had not simply made her one of the drowned. It had made her something more. Something dangerous. And Azza knew it. His black gaze watched her, not with mockery, but with expectation. Because he wasn't just here to taunt her. He was testing her. Zarya's fingers curled into fists. She had made a sacrifice. But she was still Zarya. And if the ocean thought she would simply obey, it would soon learn otherwise. Zarya didn't know how long she remained in the deep. Time moved strangely here, the days and nights blurring together beneath the endless blue. Azza had left her alone for now, but she knew it was only temporary. He was waiting. Waiting for her to break, or to rise. The drowned ones watched her from the shadows, whispering among themselves. Some with fear, some with curiosity. She was different from them. She could feel it in the way the water moved around her, the way it answered when she reached out, bending to her will. The ocean had made her one of its own. But it had also made her something Azza had not expected. A queen. The realization struck her like a bolt of lightning. She was not just another cursed soul. She had been chosen. Azza might believe he controlled her fate. He might believe he had made her his pawn. But the ocean had given her power. And power was never meant to be caged. Zarya turned toward the palace, her eyes burning with new determination. If she was to be the ocean's queen, then she would rule on her own terms. And nothing, not even Azza, would stand in her way. Zarya floated in the depths of the ocean, her mind racing. The ocean had given her power, but it had also taken everything. Her home. Her people. Omari. Azza thought he had won. He thought he had turned her into a puppet. But he was wrong. Zarya's fingers curled, and for the first time, she commanded the water. A slow current stirred around her, bending at her will. The ocean whispered in her mind, its voice deep and ancient. She was one of them now. But she would never be their prisoner. The drowned ones watched her from the shadows of the palace, their skeletal eyes wide with awe. They could feel it too. The shift in power. Some whispered among themselves. Others vowed. Azza had made a mistake. He had thought she was just another soul to be claimed. But she was not like the others. She was stronger. And now, she would rise. Far above, the surface of the ocean rippled. A figure broke through the waves, gasping for breath. Omari. His chest heaved as he collapsed onto the shore, the salt water clinging to his skin. He was free. But at what cost? He turned toward the sea, his heart thundering in his chest. Zarya, he whispered. She had saved him. She had given everything to break his curse. But she had doomed herself instead. Omari clenched his fists, his golden eyes burning. He had once been cursed to the ocean. He had once been a prisoner of the deep. But no longer. He would return. He would find her. And he would bring her back. Even if it meant going to war against the ocean itself. Zarya sat on the coral throne, her scales shimmering under the pale light. The drowned ones surrounded her, their hollow eyes filled with something she had never seen before, hope. Azza stood before her, his dark cloak billowing in the water. "You think you can change your fate, girl," he sneered. Zarya met his gaze, her expression unshaken. "I don't think," she said. "I know." Azza's smile faltered. The ocean stirred. A storm was coming. And for the first time in centuries, the deep trembled. Because the ocean had a new queen. And she would not be caged. The ocean was restless. Dark waves crashed against the shore, churning with an unnatural fury. The sky, once clear, now rumbled with distant thunder. The air smelled of salt and magic, an omen of something awakening beneath the waves. Omari stood at the water's edge, his feet sinking into the wet sand. His golden eyes burned with determination. He had spent his whole life trapped beneath the waves, cursed and forsaken. Now, he was free. But Zarya was not. She had saved him, but at the cost of her own freedom. And he knew what that meant. She had taken his place. She was bound to the ocean now. Omari clenched his fists. "I'm coming for you, Zarya," he whispered. No matter what it took. No matter what he had to do. He would bring her back. Even if it meant defying the ocean itself. Far beneath the waves, in the heart of the deep, Zarya sat upon a throne of coral and bone. Her scales shimmered like obsidian, and the water around her hummed with power. She was not the same girl who had fallen into the ocean. She was something more. Something greater. The drowned ones knelt before her, their voices whispering through the water. They feared her. And they should. She had felt the oceans will seep into her veins, its endless power coiling around her soul. She could hear it now, a voice in the dark, whispering secrets only the sea should know. The ocean had not just claimed her. It had made her its queen. But Zarya was no fool. She knew what Azza wanted. He had thought to make her a pawn in his eternal game. He had thought he could control her. But he was wrong. And soon, he would know it. Zarya's fingers curled against the armrest of her throne. The water stirred at her command. Azza stood before her, watching. Waiting. "You think you can fight this, don't you?" he asked, his black eyes glittering with amusement. Zarya met his gaze, her expression calm. "I don't think," she said. "I know." Azza's smile faltered. And in that moment, the ocean shifted. A storm was coming. And it would change everything. Omari knew he couldn't do this alone. If he was going to save Zarya, he needed help. He turned away from the ocean and looked toward the distant mountains, where the river elders lived. Long ago, before the ocean had cursed him, they had been his allies. If anyone knew how to break the ocean's hold, it was them. But time was running out. The sea was stirring. And he could feel it, Zarya was slipping away. He had to reach her before it was too late. Before she was lost to the ocean forever. Omari stood at the edge of the sacred river, watching as its waters glowed a deep, eerie blue beneath the rising moon. The air was thick with the scent of wet earth and ancient magic. The river elders were near. He had traveled for days, through dense forests and across treacherous lands, to find them. They were the oldest of the water spirits, the only ones who might know how to break the ocean's hold on Zarya. But as he stepped closer, the waters shifted. A voice, low and rippling like the current, spoke. "You should not have come here, Ocean Prince. Omari turned, his heart pounding as three figures rose from the water. The river elders. Their forms flickered like mist, their eyes like the depths of the river itself, endless, knowing. "I need your help," Omari said without hesitation. "Zarya, she saved me. But now the ocean has taken her." The elders studied him in silence. Then, one of them, a woman with silver-streaked hair and skin as dark as the riverbed, spoke. "She did not just save you, child. She took your place." Omari's jaw clenched. "Then help me free her." The elders exchanged glances, their gazes unreadable. Then, the eldest among them, an ancient being with water for skin and reeds woven into his hair, sighed. "You do not understand what has been done," he said. "Zarya is no longer just a girl. She is the ocean's queen." Omari's heart stopped. "No," he whispered. "She wears its crown now," the elder continued. "She commands its tides, its storms, its power. And with each passing day, she becomes less like the girl you knew." Omari's hands curled into fists. He refused to believe that. Zarya was strong. She would not let the ocean consume her. "She will fight it," he said firmly. "I just have to reach her." The silver-haired elder stepped forward. "You do not understand. The ocean does not let go of its own." She paused, then added, "And if you go to her now, she may no longer see you as a friend." Omari felt something cold creep into his chest. "No," he said. "Zarya would never hurt me." The elders did not answer. Because they knew the truth. And deep down, Omari feared it too. Zarya sat on her throne, watching as the water shifted around her fingers. Her power had grown. She could feel it now, pulsing beneath her skin, woven into the very fabric of the ocean itself. She had thought she was trapped. She had thought she was a prisoner. But now she understood. The ocean had not taken her. It had chosen her. Azza stood before her, his arms folded. "You are beginning to see, aren't you?" Zarya's gaze was unreadable. "I see many things now," she said. The water hummed around her, bending to her will. Azza smirked. "Good. Then you know what must be done." Zarya's expression did not change. She did know. She knew the ocean had plans for her. She knew it wanted her to rule, to reign, to become something more. But what Azza didn't know was that she would decide her own fate. She was not just the ocean's queen. She was Zarya. And she would never be controlled. Omari stood at the shore once more, his heart hammering in his chest. The river elders had given him a warning. But he would not turn back. Zarya was still in there. He knew it. And if the ocean thought it could keep her, it was wrong. The water began to rise, dark waves swelling before him. The ocean knew he had returned. And it was waiting. Omari took a breath, then stepped into the waves. He was going back. Back into the deep. Back to her. And he would not leave without her. Omari dove into the ocean, the cold swallowing him whole. The water wrapped around him like a living thing, whispering threats, testing his resolve. It knew he did not belong. But he didn't care. He had to reach Zarya. Deeper and deeper he swam, past glowing schools of fish, past jagged coral spires that twisted like the fingers of the drowned. The ocean pulled at him, its current strong, but his will was stronger. Then, in the distance, the palace. It loomed like a ghostly ruin, its spires carved from black coral, its gates guarded by creatures that had once been men. The drowned ones. Their hollow eyes turned toward him, their gaping mouths whispering in a language only the deep could understand. They were waiting. And so was she. Zarya felt him before she saw him. A ripple in the water. A disturbance in the current. She stood from her throne, her long robes flowing around her like strands of seaweed. Her fingers tingled, her power stirring in response. Omari. He had come. But he was too late. The ocean was in her veins now. She was its queen. Its chosen. She could feel its pulse in her bones, its voice whispering in her mind. It was a part of her. And yet, a part of her ached. A part of her still remembered. The boy with golden eyes. The one she had saved. The one who had once loved her. But love was not enough. She could feel Azza watching her from the shadows, waiting. Testing her. Would she waver? Would she betray the ocean for a boy who was already lost to the land? No. She would not. She was stronger than that. And Omari would soon understand. Omari stepped into the throne room, his heart hammering. And there she was. Zarya. But not the girl he remembered. Her skin shimmered with scales, her eyes glowed like the depths of the sea. The water moved around her, bending to her will. She was more than human now. She was power itself. Zarya, he breathed. She tilted her head, her expression unreadable. You shouldn't have come, she said softly. Omari took a step closer. I had to. She studied him for a long moment. And then, she smiled. But it was not the smile he knew. It was a queen's smile. A dangerous one. I belong to the ocean now, Omari, she whispered. And the water rose between them. Omari refused to believe it. The girl he loved was still there, somewhere. I know you, he said, stepping forward, even as the water pushed against him. I know your heart, Zarya. You are not this. She flinched. Just for a second. But then Azza stepped out of the shadows. Do you see now, boy, he sneered. She is ours. She will rule at my side, and you. He raised a hand. The water turned violent. We'll drown. The currents rushed forward, slamming into Omari, dragging him toward the abyss. Zarya watched, her hands trembling at her sides. She could let him die. The ocean wanted her to. It whispered that he was a threat. That he was nothing. But her heart ached. Memories flooded in. The boy who had made her laugh under the stars. The boy who had once held her hand when she was afraid. The boy who had never stopped fighting for her. And in that moment, she knew. She could not be the ocean's puppet. She could not be Azza's pawn. She was Zarya. And she would choose her own fate. Her fingers curled. The water stopped. Azza's eyes widened. What are you doing? He hissed. Zarya lifted her chin. I am making a choice. And then she turned, and with a single wave of her hand, she sent Omari back to the surface. Away from danger. Away from her. Because to save him, she would have to lose herself. The ocean was furious. Waves crashed against the palace walls, shaking the very foundation of the deep. Schools of fish scattered in terror, and the drowned ones shrieked in agony as the water itself rebelled. Azza's expression twisted with rage. You dare betray the ocean, Zarya, he snarled, stepping forward. Zarya lifted her chin, refusing to look away. I did what had to be done. Azza's fingers curled into a fist. The water shuddered, growing darker, heavier, angrier. The ocean does not forgive, he hissed. And neither do I. Lightning crackled through the deep, illuminating the throne room in an eerie glow. The drowned ones stirred, their whispers turning into a chant. A curse. A punishment. Zarya braced herself. She had saved Omari. But now, she would pay the price. Omari gasped for air, breaking the surface as the waves spat him out onto the shore. The sky above was dark, the sea churning with a vengeful hunger. Zarya had sent him away. She had saved him. But she was still trapped. He slammed his fists into the sand, frustration burning in his chest. "No," he growled. "I won't leave her." The river elders had warned him. They had told him the ocean would never let her go. But they didn't understand. He would not stop. No matter what it took, he would break the ocean's hold. He would bring her back. Even if it meant going to war. Zarya stood frozen as Azza lifted his hand. The water coiled around her, cold and unyielding, dragging her to her knees. "You think you can defy the ocean?" Azza's voice was a whisper of rage. Zarya gritted her teeth, refusing to bow. "I think for myself," she shot back. The drowned ones hissed, their voices echoing through the deep. Azza stepped closer, his black eyes gleaming. "Then the ocean will test you." The water tightened around her, pressing against her chest, cutting off her breath. It wanted her to submit. To surrender. To become its true queen. Zarya clenched her fists. She would not break. She was Zarya, daughter of a king, and she had chosen her own path. If the ocean wanted a fight, it would get one. Omari stood at the edge of the water, his heart pounding. The sea raged before him, warning him away. But he did not listen. He turned to the warriors who had gathered behind him, the river elders, the lost children of the waves, the spirits who had once been betrayed by the ocean's will. They had all suffered beneath the tide. Now, they would fight. "For too long, the ocean has taken what it wants," Omari called out, his voice ringing over the crashing waves. "It stole our freedom. Our lives. Our loved ones." He raised his trident, the golden weapon gleaming under the stormy sky. But no more. A murmur rippled through the warriors. "We fight for Zarya," Omari continued. "For every soul trapped beneath the waves." He stepped forward, the ocean lapping at his feet. He could feel it now, the connection that still bound him to Zarya. She was waiting. She was fighting. And he would fight for her. He took a deep breath. And plunged into the sea. The war for the ocean had begun. The ocean swallowed Omari whole. He moved swiftly through the dark currents, the golden glow of his trident cutting through the shadows. Around him, his warriors followed, the river elders, the lost children of the waves, and spirits long bound by the ocean's cruelty. They had all gathered for one purpose. To free Zarya. Omari's heart pounded. He could feel the ocean's resistance, its anger growing. The waters churned violently, and unseen creatures slithered through the deep, their whispers carrying the ocean's threats. "Turn back. Leave her. She is ours." Omari's grip on his trident tightened. No. He had fought too long, sacrificed too much. He would not abandon her now. The black coral palace loomed ahead, its twisted spires stretching toward the surface like the ribs of a beast. The moment Omari laid eyes on it, the drowned ones came. Their hollow eyes glowed with a sickly green light, their bodies moving like drifting corpses in the current. They did not speak, they attacked. Omari struck first. He thrust his trident forward, and a burst of golden energy rippled through the water, sending the first wave of drowned ones tumbling back. But more came. Hundreds. Thousands. The ocean would not let them reach Zarya without a fight. And Omari was ready. Zarya stood before Azza, her body trembling but her heart steady. The water crushed around her, testing her, breaking her, remaking her. The ocean whispered its truths. That she was its chosen. That she belonged to the deep. That she must forget the world above. Zarya's hands clenched into fists. It would be so easy to give in. To surrender to the power flowing through her veins. But then she saw her own reflection in the water. She saw the scales on her skin, the glow in her eyes, the shape of a girl who was becoming something else. Something not human. And she knew. If she let the ocean consume her now, there would be no turning back. She would truly belong to the depths. And Omari would be lost to her forever. Her heart ached at the thought. No. She would not let the ocean take her. She was not just the daughter of a king. She was not just a pawn in this ancient war. She was Zarya. And she would choose her own fate. Her eyes snapped to Azza. "You wanted a queen," she said, her voice strong. She lifted her hands. And the water bent to her will. Azza's eyes widened. Zarya was no longer his pawn. She was his equal. And she was ready to fight. Omari fought with all his strength, cutting through the drowned ones like a storm through the sea. But they were endless. For every creature he struck down, 3 more took its place. His warriors fought bravely beside him, but even they were beginning to fall. Then, a pulse of energy rippled through the ocean. Omari froze. He knew that power. It was her. Zarya. She was still fighting. Still resisting. And for the first time, the ocean wavered. The tide was shifting. Hope surged through Omari's veins. Zarya was still Zarya. And as long as she was fighting, he would fight too. Because no matter how deep the ocean dragged her, he would bring her back. Even if it meant tearing the sea apart. The ocean was angry. It roared through the currents, twisting and thrashing like a wounded beast. It had ruled for centuries, bending kings and warriors to its will. It had taken souls, crushed dreams, and drowned those who dared to defy it. But now, a mere girl was challenging its power. Zarya stood tall, her heart hammering in her chest. The energy coursing through her veins was no longer the ocean's control, it was hers. She raised her hands, and the water obeyed. Azza's furious voice cut through the waves. "You dare defy me, Zarya," he spat. His dark robes billowed like ink in the currents, his eyes glowing with malice. "You were chosen. The ocean gave you power, and you would throw it away for a land dweller." Zarya's breath was steady, but her mind raced. She had seen what the ocean did to those who surrendered to it. The drowned ones. The lost souls. Even Azza himself. She had been on the brink of losing herself, but Omari had reminded her of who she was. She was not a puppet. Not a prisoner. She was Zarya. And she would not be ruled. "I was never yours to control," she said, and the water around her exploded outward. Azza reeled back, his face twisting in shock. Zarya clenched her fists. The final battle had begun. Omari fought his way to the gates of the Coral Palace, his warriors pushing forward with him. The drowned ones were faltering. The moment Zarya had seized control of the water, the ocean had hesitated. And in that hesitation, Omari struck. He drove his trident forward, sending a golden blast of energy into the heart of the enemy ranks. The sea shook. The drowned ones screamed. The tide was turning. He could feel it now. Zarya was still fighting inside the palace. He had to reach her before it was too late. With a final surge, he broke through the last of the guards and rushed toward the throne room. His heart pounded. "Hold on, Zarya. I'm coming." Zarya and Azza clashed. Dark energy spiraled from his hands, but Zarya countered with a blast of her own power. The water tore apart around them, twisting into violent currents. "You cannot win." Azza snarled, his form shifting into something monstrous. His once human face stretched, his fingers turning into blackened claws. "The ocean will never let you go." Zarya's heart burned. "The ocean does not own me," she whispered. And then she struck. A pulse of light ripped through the palace, shattering the dark magic that had bound it for centuries. Oz's scream echoed through the deep. The curse was breaking. And at that moment, Omari burst into the throne room. Their eyes met. Time seemed to stop. Omari's face was bloodied, his breath ragged. But when he saw her standing there, still Zarya, still fighting, his eyes filled with something fierce. Pride. Love. Hope. Oza snarled. "This isn't over," he hissed. And before Zarya or Omari could stop him, he vanished into the depths. The palace shook. The ocean itself screamed. Zarya staggered, but Omari was there, catching her before she could fall. "It's over," he whispered. She met his gaze, the ocean's power still pulsing in her veins. Was it? Because the sea was still waiting. And the price for freedom had not yet been paid. The ocean howled in protest. The palace trembled as cracks snaked through the black coral walls. The water churned, twisting into violent whirlpools as the sea fought against the breaking of the curse. Zarya clung to Omari, her body trembling. The power surging through her veins was almost too much, as if the ocean itself was trying to pull her apart. Omari's arms tightened around her. "Stay with me," he murmured. His golden eyes burned with determination. "We're not done yet." Zarya's breath hitched. She could still feel Oz's presence, lurking in the shadows of the deep. He was waiting. Watching. And she knew he was not gone. Not yet. A sudden shadow fell over them. Oz's voice slithered through the water, thick with venom. "You think you've won?" The waters darkened, and a chill spread through the throne room. Ozza emerged from the shadows, his form barely human now, his skin black as the abyss, his eyes glowing with raw, ancient hatred. His body pulsed with dark magic, the remnants of the ocean's wrath twisting around him. Zarya and Omari stepped back, bracing for an attack. Ozza lifted his hands, and the sea obeyed. The walls of the palace collapsed, and a tidal wave rushed forward, aiming to swallow them whole. But Zarya was ready. She had spent her whole life being told what she had to do, who she had to be. But now, she was choosing herself. She lifted her arms, and met the wave head-on. Power surged through her, and the water stopped. It trembled, hesitated, bowed. The ocean had never feared Ozza. But it feared her. Ozza's face twisted in shock. "No, this is impossible." Zarya's voice was calm but firm. "The ocean belongs to no one," she said. Then, with one final push, she unleashed all of her power. The water exploded outward, shattering the last chains of the curse. Ozza screamed, a long, desperate wail, before his body disintegrated into the currents. The dark magic that had ruled for centuries was no more. And for the first time in an eternity, the ocean was free. The water stilled. The deep, once a place of sorrow and curses, now shimmered with golden light. Omari and Zarya floated side by side, their hands still intertwined. Zarya felt lighter. The power was still inside her, but it was no longer suffocating. It no longer owned her. She had bent the ocean to her will, and it had accepted her. Omari turned to her, his expression soft. "You did it." Zarya let out a breathless laugh. "We did it." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The weight of their journey, their battles, their sacrifices, it all led to this. But now, for the first time in centuries, there was peace. The throne room was gone. The drowned ones had vanished. And the ocean, freed from its curse, was waiting. Zarya and Omari stood on the seabed, the golden glow of his trident casting long shadows. A single question remained. What now? Omari asked softly. Zarya hesitated. She had been tied to the sea for so long, bound by fate, by prophecy. But now, she had a choice. She looked at Omari. "Do you want to stay?" Omari was silent for a long moment. Then, he smiled. "No." The word was soft, but it rang through the water like a promise. He turned to the sea around them. "I have been its prisoner long enough. My people deserve a leader who chooses them, not one cursed to rule." Zarya swallowed. "And me?" Omari brushed his fingers against her cheek. "You are my choice, Zarya. No curse, no prophecy, no blood oath, just you." Tears burned in her eyes. She had been willing to sacrifice everything for him. But now, she didn't have to. The ocean had released them both. And together, they would go home. The return to land was celebrated for generations. The ocean was calm for the first time in centuries, and the storms that had once plagued the shores never returned. The people of Omari's lost kingdom resurfaced, free to rebuild. And in Zarya's kingdom, her father, once doomed to die, lived to see his daughter return. Omari and Zarya, once bound by an ancient curse, now walked the earth as free souls. But they never forgot. And sometimes, in the quiet of the night, Zarya would stand by the shore and listen to the waves. And she could swear. The ocean whispered her name. The end. What do you think? What would you have done in Zarya's place? Would you have given in to the ocean's power, or fought for your freedom? Comment your answer below. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like this video, share with your friends, subscribe so you never miss another magical tale. The next adventure is just around the corner. Stay tuned.